Looking at the attributes list in front of him, the 11-year-old Hanju almost lost all hope. Cultivation potential and connate providence could be randomly changed every day by rolling the dice. However, each could only be changed once, and they could be refreshed every day at 7 in the morning. Hanju had been refreshing since he was born. It had been 11 years, but he still hadn't managed to produce the best attributes and connate providence. Should I just start like this? A thought popped up in Hanju's mind. No. It wasn't easy for him to come to a world of immortals and ghosts. How could it allow mortals to cultivate? Hanju wanted to be the almighty protagonist. Roll the dice again. Hanju raised his hand and clicked at the attributes list in front of him. Cultivation potential changed. Hanju's young face instantly darkened. Again. Destined Lone Star. Brings bad luck to friends and family. Loneliness for life. Lifespan increased by 100 years. Fuck. Even Destined Lone Star had appeared. Who wants to be alone for life? Hanju was so angry that he laid down and rolled on the grass. For an entire 11 years, he was unable to produce any outstanding cultivation potential and connate providence. No. Continue rolling the dice. I don't believe it. Hanju trembled in anger. After half an hour, he finally got up. Hanju was a reborn person. In his previous life, he lived in the 21st century on Earth. At a young age, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He didn't want to undergo painful treatment and went home to wait for death. That night, to numb himself, he found an old-school cultivation game to play. He played all night and was very hyped up. He got sleepy at dawn and thus died. When he opened his eyes again, he was reincarnated into this ancient world. He was born into a cultivation sect. The Jade Pure sect was a righteous cultivation sect of the Great Yen dynasty. On the day that he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, Hanju was terrified. This was the first time he knew that life was so important. But now in his new life he could actually cultivate. He was pleasantly surprised. He had to cultivate. He wanted to live longer than anyone else. However, he couldn't cultivate as a mortal. Ever since he was born, Hanju had been living without any pressure. His parents were the servants of Elder Iron, an alchemy master of the Jade Pure sect's outer sect. They usually planted medicinal herbs for Elder Iron. An alchemist's status was special. In the outer sect, no one dared to offend Elder Iron. He had dozens of servants under him, all of whom were mortals. Even if they had cultivation potential, Elder Iron wouldn't allow his servants to cultivate. He was probably afraid they would steal his herbs. His herbs were beneficial to cultivators, but to mortals, they were poison. However, when he was 6 years old, his parents fled, leaving the young Hanju in Elder Iron's herb garden. Hanju could understand. It would definitely be inconvenient to escape with a child. Elder Iron didn't mind. Instead, he asked someone to guide Hanju in helping him grow the herbs. As time passed, Hanju became familiar with all the plants in the herb garden. Elder Iron didn't make things difficult for Hanju, and Hanju continued to roll his dice. Since he was immortal now, he might as well wait. This content is taken from Light Novel World. Sigh. I will just keep rolling. If I can't produce a heaven-defying providence before the age of 30, then forget it. Even if I'm going to cultivate as a mortal, so be it. Hanju thought silently. The oldest servant in the herbal garden was in his 70s. He was called Old Man Wang. He had been chosen by Elder Iron when he was in his teens. Now he was the leader of the servants. All the servants followed his lead. Hanju stood up and returned to the herb garden. He began to sprinkle water and clean up the dead leaves. The herb garden was huge, as big as a football field. Every servant was very careful when they worked. If they accidentally damaged the plants, Elder Iron would be furious. Some of the herbs were even poisonous. Elder Iron had only gone out last month and would probably take 2 to 3 years to return. To cultivators, 2 or 3 years were nothing at all. In the herb garden, Hanju was a man of few words. He didn't have many friends and only interacted with Old Man Wang. After he was done, he returned to his room and started doing push-ups to train his body. The next morning, Hanju washed up. Then, he sat on the wooden bed and waited. Hanju waited until the time when the attributes list was refreshed before he perked up. It felt like a lottery draw. This was what he looked forward to the most every day. He rubbed his hands together. First, he was going to roll the dice for cultivation potential. Fuck. This is too despicable. Hanju almost died of anger. His hands began to tremble as he continued to draw out the Connate Providence. The die rolled. Connate Providence is as follows: unparalleled, immortal beauty, top-notch charm, destined sword fanatic, top-notch sword Dao aptitude, top-notch sword Dao learning ability, unparalleled movement technique, top-notch movement technique aptitude, descendant of the immortal emperor. After the game begins, you will receive an unparalleled cultivation technique and 1,000 superior grade spirit stones. Hanju was stunned. His eyes widened in surprise. For more, visit Light Novel World. Com 4 Connate Providences. This was the first time 4 Connate Providences had been produced, and they all looked very impressive. Hanju became more and more excited. This is it. No, they are it. 4 top-notch. 1 unparalleled. 1 look, and one could tell that it was extraordinary. After rolling the dice for 11 years, day after day, the goddess of fortune was finally blessing him. Hanju tried hard to calm down. Without a cultivation potential, he couldn't start his game life yet. He still had to roll the dice for the cultivation potential. Finally, I'm seeing a silver lining. With these 4 supreme-grade Connate Providences, even if I start cultivating at the age of 40, I can still make it in time. I can rest assured and continue rolling the dice for cultivation potential. Hanju was in a good mood when he thought of this. He had been rolling for 11 years, so what if it would take another 11 years? Hanju let out a long sigh, then got up and left the room to begin his day's work. 6 people were living in the house with him, and each of them had a bed. The others had woken up early in the morning. Everyone had a region they were responsible for, so they didn't dare to make any mistakes. Hanju was still young and only needed to do some simple work. Elder Iron didn't dare to let him be in charge of an area. The sun was exceptionally bright today. Perhaps it had something to do with his mood. The other servants didn't feel Hanju's change. He hadn't started his thrilling life yet, so the enhancements due to the Connate Providence hadn't appeared yet. Noon. 2 cultivators arrived. The Jade Pure sect was very big. The herb garden was surrounded by mountains. Cultivators weren't allowed to come here. Most of the time, the outer sect deacons would be the ones who came to ask for pills. These 2 cultivators had excellent temperaments. One was a man, and the other was a woman. They looked like an immortal couple, attracting the attention of all the servants. Hanju also turned to look at the entrance of the herb garden. How glamorous! Hanju sighed. The clothes of the servants were tattered, and the clothes of the 2 cultivators were clean and gorgeous. They looked like NPCs from an online cultivation game. It was just a random exclamation. He didn't feel envious at all. This content is taken from Light Novel World. He had already obtained 4 Connate Providences, and his future achievements were not something that the outer sect disciples of the Jade Pure sect could compare to. The male cultivator expressionlessly said to Old Man Wang, "From today onwards, the 2 of us will be responsible for protecting Elder Iron's medicinal herb garden. You don't need to be bothered by us. Also, don't disturb our cultivation." Did something happen to Elder Iron? Old Man Wang asked cautiously. Did something happen to Elder Iron? Old Man Wang asked cautiously. Although Elder Iron was temperamental, Old Man Wang had accompanied him for decades and naturally did not wish for anything to happen to him. The female cultivator shook her head and said, "The Jade Pure sect has recently been infiltrated by a fiendish cultivator. The outer sect has specially sent the 2 of us to protect you. You don't have to worry." Old Man Wang heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing that. He cupped his hands and bowed, then turned and left. The 2 cultivators walked away and meditated under the trees on both sides of the entrance into the herb garden. As they began their breathing exercises, visible whirlwinds appeared around them. That must be spirit qi. Hanju thought silently and continued sprinkling water. The next day, Hanju continued rolling the dice. Hanju rolled his eyes. He actually didn't find it strange. He did not panic. In any case, he had obtained 4 top-notch Khanate providences. He could take his time in getting the best cultivation potential. The presence of the 2 cultivators did not change the lives of the herb garden servants. The dull life continued. Apart from his work, Hanju trained his body and rolled the dice every day. The 3rd day, he rolled the dice. Fine. I know you're messing with me. Hanju cursed in his head. On the 4th day, cultivation potential. 5 elements, mixed potential. Cultivation cannot exceed foundational establishment. Yes, the standard for mortal cultivation. Hanju shook his head. He still had to continue rolling the dice. He would never allow himself to cultivate as a mortal. Just like that, Hanju exercised every day and rolled the dice every day. Most of the time, he would obtain mixed potential. He wasn't discouraged. He believed that he would be able to obtain a godlike cultivation potential. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel World. Kama was fine to cultivate later. Anyway, he wasn't seeking revenge. 2 years later, Elder Iron returned, and the 2 cultivators bowed and bid farewell. All the servants gathered and knelt down before Elder Iron. Elder Iron wore a black robe, and 2 gourds were hanging from his waist. His hair was black and white, and his expression was gloomy and fierce. He looked very bad-tempered indeed. Not bad, no mistakes. Elder Iron looked around and smiled in satisfaction. The servants heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. Elder Iron looked at Hanju and the other youngsters beside him. The 4 of you, follow me. Elder Iron pointed and walked towards his pavilion. Hanju was one of the 4. They immediately followed. He wants to arrange for us to be in charge of a portion of the garden? Hanju thought silently. He suddenly noticed that blood was dripping from Elder Iron's right hand. Hanju was shocked. Could it be that Elder Iron was injured and wanted to make them into puppets or use them as ingredients for pills? Hanju had read many cultivation novels in his previous life. The one thing that left the deepest impression on him was that cultivators would rather kill their friends than die themselves. To cultivators, nothing was more important than their own lives. The more Hanju thought about it, the more panicked he became. He didn't dare to escape and could only try his best to calm himself down. After entering the house, a youngster closed the door. Elder Iron sat at the end of the table and scrutinized Hanju and the others. All of you, stretch out your hands, Elder Iron instructed. Hanju and the others raised their right hands. Elder Iron touched them one by one. Hanju could feel the goosebumps on his arm. Only you have a cultivation potential. The rest can go back, Elder Iron said to a tall and strong youth. Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. This morning, he rolled the dice for the cultivation potential again. Yesterday, he still had a quadruple cultivation potential, but today it was gone. Unexpectedly, it was a blessing in disguise. Hanju looked at the youngster sympathetically. Follow current novels on Light Novel World. Calm Zhangge, a passionate and popular teenager who liked pigeons. The other 2 youngsters looked at Zhangge with envy. Zhangge was both excited and nervous. Elder Iron didn't allow servants to cultivate, but this was also the first time he checked the servants' cultivation potential. After leaving the pavilion, Hanju ignored the discussion of the other 2 youngsters and returned to work. From then on, Zhangge no longer participated in the labor. It turned out that Elder Iron had taken him in as a disciple. This made the other servants even more envious and jealous. Hanju wasn't envious at all. It must be a trap. He would first nurture him before killing him. Hanju was glad that he wasn't chosen. He had the system, so he didn't need a master. In the blink of an eye, another 2 years had passed. Elder Iron left the herb garden again half a year ago. After he had left, the 2 cultivators from before came to protect the herb garden again. Zhangge was already a cultivator, so he even went forth to talk with the 2 cultivators. All the slaves had to obey him now. Fortunately, Zhang was busy cultivating and did not bully other servants. They were slaves for the rest of their lives. Elder Iron often went out, and they weren't allowed to leave the herb garden. There were no conflicts of interest, so there were very few quarrels. Hanju was already 15 years old and still kept a low profile. In the past 4 years, the best cultivation potential he rolled was a triple cultivation potential. He could reach the Golden Core realm with it. The Golden Core realm was nothing. Hanju's goal was to live forever and become immortal. That morning, Hanju rolled the dice casually. He didn't have any expectations. It was like getting up every day to rinse his mouth. Cultivation potential. Water and wood double cultivation potential. Extraordinary aptitude. There's hope to cultivate to the nascent soul realm. Double cultivation potential? Nascent soul realm? Hope. Hanju clicked his tongue, completely unmoved. He was only 15. He could roll the dice for another 15 years. Continue rolling the dice. This content is taken from Light Novel World. Calm spring passed and autumn came. Another year passed. Hanju rolled the dice every morning as usual. Cultivation potential. Spiritual physique of the 6 paths. It contains top-notch wind, fire, water, earth, wood, and thunder cultivation potentials. Increases providence to a certain extent. Just this? Hanju scoffed subconsciously. Wait. It's this. Hanju's eyes widened and his breathing quickened. It's here. It's been 16 years. Finally, a protagonist's cultivation potential. Hanju rubbed his eyes and confirmed carefully. Top-grade cultivation potential. And it was a top-grade cultivation potential with 6 attributes. Hanju tried hard to calm down. Finally, this is it. This was the spirit root aptitude that he should have. Hanju didn't immediately click to start the life of games. He was afraid that the commotion would be too big. After all, 2 cultivators were guarding the door. Here comes the question. How long do I have to wait? Hanju was in a dilemma. A line of words suddenly appeared in front of him. You can choose a small place. The system will help you create a barrier. The cultivators outside the barrier will not be able to sense the changes within the barrier. Hanju was pleasantly surprised. He immediately walked to the door. After confirming that all the servants had gone to the herb garden, he closed the door. He stood in the middle of the room and pulled up the stats list. His fingers trembled as he clicked on the bottom line. Click here to start the life of games. Successful. The attributes list changed. Lines of words appeared in front of Hanju. Beginning life of games. Recount of your life. Hanju, you were born in a cultivation sect in the mortal world. From a young age, you were exceptionally beautiful and loved by everyone. Your parents abandoned you when you were young. It was as if you had a destiny for something. You have a talent that surpasses the rest of the world in the art of the sword. You can often feel that the world contains 6 mysterious powers that you cannot grasp or see. Visit Light Novel World. Calm for the best novel reading experience. Until today, you accidentally awakened the immortal Emperor's inheritance and obtained the unparalleled 6 paths of reincarnation technique. Because of this, you embarked on the path of cultivation. Please choose your main cultivation route. Swordsman Thunder, Cultivator Earth, Cultivator Fire, Cultivator Water, Cultivator Wood, Cultivator Wind, Cultivator. Cultivation Specialization? Cultivation Specialization? Hanju didn't hesitate too much. He noticed that he had obtained the 6 paths of reincarnation technique, which was most likely related to the spiritual physique of the 6 paths. The aptitudes of the 6 top-notch cultivation potentials had to be developed together. He wanted a holistic development. At the same time, he possessed top-notch talent in swordsmanship, so he naturally had to choose sword cultivation. After Hanju figured it out, he immediately clicked on swordsman. In an instant, a strange heat surged within his body. He fell into a trance. It was like a dream. It was very long, but he couldn't remember what happened in the dream. When he opened his eyes again, Hanju was covered in sweat. The screen in front of him had become a list of attributes. Name, Hanju. Lifespan, 11/65. Race, mortal. Cultivation, none. Technique, 6 paths of reincarnation technique can be inherited. Magic, none. Mystical power, none. Equipment, none. Cultivation potential, spiritual physique of the 6 paths. It contains top-notch wind, fire, water, earth, wood, and thunder cultivation potentials. Increases providence to a certain extent. Connate providence is as follows: unparalleled, immortal beauty, top-notch charm. Destined sword fanatic, top-notch sword Dao aptitude, top-notch sword Dao learning ability, unparalleled movement technique, top-notch movement technique aptitude, descendant of the immortal emperor. After the game begins, you will receive an unparalleled cultivation technique and 1,000 superior grade spirit stones. Check interpersonal relationships. Han Ju wasn't in a hurry to inherit the 6 paths of reincarnation technique. Instead, he clicked on the interpersonal relationships at the bottom. The screen changed and a photo of a person appeared. It looked exactly like Elder Iron. Elder Iron, 7th level of the Qi refinement realm. He hates you. If you have cultivation potential, he would definitely scheme against you. Hatred level, 1 star. Fuck, I worked so hard for you, and you still hate me? Han Ju cursed in his head. Then he calmed down. For more, visit Light Novel World. Calmness is so useful. I can see what others think of me. But why is there no one else? Mortals aren't included? Does Zhangge have no thoughts about me? Han Ju couldn't figure it out, so he didn't think too much about it. He pushed open the door first and realized that it was almost noon. He couldn't be lazy anymore, or he would be discovered. He immediately ran towards the herb garden. Han Ju, did you sleep in? A middle-aged servant chided him laughingly. Han Ju scratched his head in embarrassment, causing the others to laugh. They didn't think too much about it, nor did they really scold him. Han Ju rarely failed his duty, and sleeping in once in a while was okay. The female cultivator at the entrance of the herb garden suddenly opened her eyes to look at Han Ju. She frowned slightly. This young man is so handsome. A line of words appeared in front of Han Ju. Xing Hongxian has developed a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star. What the hell? Who is Xing Hongxian? Han Ju was baffled and turned around subconsciously. Can it be that female cultivator? As expected, the female cultivator was staring at him. Their eyes met, and Xing Hongxian smiled at him. Han Ju quickly turned his head away. Crap. My top-notch charm has kicked into effect. I'm a mortal, and she's a cultivator. A romantic relationship between us will not be blessed. Can it be that she wants to use me as a human furnace? No. He had to think of a way to avoid that. At night, after the other 5 servants were all sound asleep, Han Ju lay on the bed and began to inherit the 6 paths of reincarnation technique. A huge amount of memories flooded his mind. After a long while, the source of this content is Light Novel World. Calm, he opened his eyes. So, this is a cultivation technique. It's so complicated, Han Ju thought to himself. He was only at the 1st level of the technique, and he could reach the 9th level of Qi refining realm. The 6 paths of reincarnation technique focused on a balanced development so that he could nurture the cultivation potentials of all 6 elemental types. Although the cultivation process was more complicated than cultivating only a single elemental type, Han Ju's aptitude was exceptional and could make up for it. Only when 6 types of spirit Qi reached a certain level could one build their foundation. Han Ju was very excited and quietly sat up. He had the system set up a barrier around his bed so that the 3 cultivators outside wouldn't notice. The other 5 servants were sound asleep. After all, it had been a tiring day. Han Ju started to perform expiration exercises according to the 1st level. Expiration was a breathing technique. During the expiration process, he patiently sensed the heaven and earth spirit Qi. In less than 10 seconds, Han Ju felt the wind, earth, wood, and water spirit Qi in the air. As for the fire and thunder spirit Qi, he couldn't capture them yet. Han Ju began to absorb the 4 types of spirit Qi. Words suddenly appeared before his eyes. Even though his eyes were closed, he could still see these words. It was truly miraculous. This is your first time cultivating. These are the following options for your cultivation development. Firstly, you can be a high-profile, unparalleled prodigy. You can obtain 1 Qi refining realm equipment. Alternatively, you can keep a low profile and cultivate. You can activate the ability to hide your cultivation and cultivation potential. Han Ju chose the second option without hesitation. The second function was obviously a godly skill. This way, he would be able to cultivate in peace without the fear of being discovered. You can activate the hidden function anytime. Han Ju smiled. Elder Iron had yet to return, so he had to seize the opportunity to become stronger. In the blink of an eye, 2 years passed quickly. The 18-year-old Han Ju was already at the 7th level of the Qi refinement realm. His 4 cultivation potentials, wind, earth, wood, and water, were all at the 7th level of the Qi refinement realm. Han Ju knew that Xing Hongxian was only at the 7th level of Qi refining realm through the interpersonal relationships list. Elder Iron hadn't returned for the past 2 years. What was worth mentioning was that Xing Hongxuan's good impression of him had increased to 2 stars. They had never even spoken. However, Han Ju could sense that Xing Hongxian kept staring at him, which made him feel uncomfortable. Visit Light Novel World. Calm for a better experience. Being too handsome also had its troubles.
Sigh.
I only want to cultivate. Han Ju sighed in his head. Xing Hongxian was pretty, but definitely not so beautiful that people would give up anything for her. Han Ju didn't want to fall in love with her. Once he loved someone, he would have a weakness. He wanted to live forever and not die halfway. He would consider romantic relationships once he had obtained immortality. As long as he was invincible, he could have as many women as he wanted. He wasn't afraid of his enemies finding trouble with him. As Han Ju worked, he made the firm decision to see Xing Hongxian as a lure that would sway him from his goals. At this moment, Xing Hongxian suddenly rose to her feet. She walked over leisurely, attracting the attention of the other servants. She went straight to Han Ju and smiled. "Come with me." Han Ju was stunned. The other servants looked at him enviously. To be able to attract the attention of such a fairy-like figure must be a good thing. All of them had already given up hope and had made themselves content with staying single for life. Han Ju didn't dare to refuse and could only nod. The 2 of them walked out of the herb garden. The male cultivator opened his eyes and asked, "Hongxian, what are you doing?" He sized up Han Ju and frowned. "He's so handsome." The herb garden servants had never left the garden their entire lives. They had no aesthetic taste, and with their habitual thinking, they didn't really notice the change in Han Ju much. As a female, Xing Hongxian was the first to notice something different about him. The male cultivator observed Han Ju carefully only because of Xing Hongxian. Han Ju's good looks made him instinctively unhappy. Xing Hongxian covered her mouth and smiled. "It's fine. You can continue your cultivation. I want to talk to this young man alone." Han Ju smiled awkwardly and anxiously at the male cultivator. The male cultivator frowned but did not say anything. Han Ju followed Xing Hongxian into the woods. He was struggling internally. "I'm too charming. Visit Light Novel World. Calm for a better experience. What should I do next? Resist? Or Kobe?" Han Ju and Xing Hongxian arrived at a deserted corner of the forest. Han Ju felt uneasy, fearing that Xing Hongxian would make that request. Han Ju and Xing Hongxian arrived at a deserted corner of the forest. Han Ju felt uneasy, fearing that Xing Hongxian would make that request. Xing Hongxian turned to look at him with a burning gaze. Han Ju didn't dare to look her in the eyes. Xing Hongxian smiled and said, "Don't be nervous. I'm not trying to bother you. I just want to ask you, are you really willing to be a slave in this herbal garden forever?" Han Ju was silent. "Next, you want me to bow before you and become your toy?" Xing Hongxian took a step forward and whispered into his ear, "Help me do something. I will help you cultivate and rid you of your mortal identity." "What is it?" Xing Hongxian opened and closed her mouth, but no sound came out. However, Han Ju heard her clearly. Help me obtain Elder Iron's alchemy recipe. I will bring you along when I leave the Jade Pure sect, and we will head to the fiendish cult. I will treat you well in the future. Under me, you will not suffer at all. If you have the aptitude and achieve good cultivation, we can even become companions. Sound transmission. Hanju widened his eyes. This woman is actually a fiendish cultivator. Hanju had no idea what to do. This was no joke. If he agreed, he would offend the entire Jade Pure sect. If he refused, Xinghongshan would never let him leave the forest. Elder Iron wasn't here. This was only the outer sect of the Jade Pure sect. No one would respond even if he shouted his lungs out. Xinghongshan didn't rush him. She walked around Hanju and waited patiently. Hanju was weighing his chances of winning against Xinghongshan. They were both at the 7th level of the Qi refinement realm. Without magic and equipment, how could he defeat Xinghongshan? I can't resort to brute force. Hanju pretended to be terrified and said, I don't know where that thing is. Moreover, Zhangge is there. Xinghongshan looked satisfied. The fact that Hanju didn't mention the alchemy recipe meant that he was smart. It's all right. I still have time. I can wait for you, Xinghongshan said with a smile. She took out a pill and said, This pill can help you unlock your cultivation potential. Take it, this is my greeting gift. Hanju looked at the pill. It looked like chocolate. It was definitely poison. Not able to refuse, Hanju placed it in his mouth. But he wrapped the pill with his spirit qi to prevent it from melting. After swallowing it, Hanju opened his mouth and deliberately showed it to Xinghongshan. He then said excitedly, Thank you, fairy-like miss. I will do my best. Damn it. For more, visit Light Novel World. Wait for me to cultivate for another year, and I will let you know how formidable I am. It was impossible for Hanju to join the fiendish cult just like that. He wanted to live forever, not a risky life. Xinghongshan covered her mouth and smiled. She reached out to touch Hanju's cheek and said with a smile, You're so sensible. Be good. I will groom you as my husband in the future. Hanju showed excitement. But he was actually disgusted. Stupid bitch. Do you think you are worthy of me? Xinghongshan rubbed his face for a while more before the two of them returned to the herb garden. The male cultivator looked at Hanju suspiciously, frowning. Xinghongshan smiled mysteriously and continued her cultivation. As Hanju walked into the herb garden, lines of words suddenly appeared before his eyes. You are threatened by the fiendish cultivator Xinghongshan. You have the following choices. I can even be rewarded? Nice. Hanju's eyes lit up. He was even more determined to not listen to her. Night fell. Hanju returned to the room and activated the barrier function. He then spat out the pill in his stomach and placed it in his belt. Then he walked to the wooden bed and sat down. He took out a steamed bun and started eating. He had already abstained from eating ordinary meals, but to not cause suspicion, he had to pretend to eat. It was late at night. After the 5 slaves had fallen asleep, Hanju continued to cultivate. Given his cultivation potential, it wouldn't be difficult for him to surpass Xinghongshan. For the next few days, Hanju worked as usual. Zhangge had been cultivating in Elder Iron's residence, giving Hanju an excuse to not enter. Xinghongshan seemed to be in no hurry. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. Name: Hanju, visit Light Novel World. For a better experience, lifespan 18/85, race mortal. Cultivation 8th level of the Qi refinement realm. Technique: 6 paths of reincarnation technique can be inherited. Magic: none. Mystical power: none. Equipment: none. Cultivation potential: spiritual physique of the 6 paths. It contains top-notch wind, fire, water, earth, wood, and thunder cultivation potentials. Increases providence to a certain extent. Connate providence is as follows: unparalleled, immortal beauty, top-notch charm. Destined sword fanatic, top-notch sword Dao aptitude, top-notch sword Dao learning ability, unparalleled movement technique, top-notch movement technique aptitude, descendant of the immortal emperor. After the game begins, you will receive an unparalleled cultivation technique and 1,000 superior-grade spirit stones. Check interpersonal relationships. Hanju broke through to the 8th level of Qi Refinement Realm, and all 4 of his spiritual roots reached the 8th level of Qi Refinement Realm. It was worth mentioning that his lifespan had also increased by 20 years, making him overjoyed. The feeling of having his spiritual Qi rapidly grow was truly wonderful. On the other hand, Xing Hongxian and Elder Iron hadn't progressed in their cultivation at all. This was the difference between a genius and a mortal. Hanju was secretly pleased. Indeed, one had to endure loneliness to become stronger. If he had started cultivating as a mortal from the very beginning, he might not even have reached the 4th level of the Qi Refinement Realm yet. That night, Hanju heard footsteps outside the door. He immediately lay down and closed the barrier. "I'm going to lure Zhang, go away. You can go in and look for the item later." Xing Hongshuan's voice reached Hanju's ears. He opened his eyes and hurriedly got up.
Damn.
I still can't run away from it. Hanju waited patiently. Follow new episodes on the Light Novel World. Com platform. He, who was at the 8th level of Qi refining, had already obtained a divine sense, and his normal senses were also extraordinary. He could faintly hear the sound of tables and chairs colliding in the distant pavilion. "You can go now." Xing Hongshuan's voice flowed into his ear. Then, Hanju sensed Xing Hongxian and Zhang Ge rushing away from the roof. Hanju quietly got up and prepared to put on a show. After carefully leaving the house, he looked towards the entrance of the herb garden and discovered that the male cultivator had fallen under a tree. He couldn't tell if the guy was dead or alive. What a weak guy. Hanju couldn't help but ridicule him. He headed for the pavilion. Elder Iron's pavilion was 2 stories high, just like the villa. It was grand and magnificent, filled with all kinds of porcelain and paintings. After Hanju entered the house, he began to wander around. He didn't put in any effort at all. Even if there was something he wanted, he had no place to keep it. After sitting for half an hour, Hanju got up and continued to rummage through the drawers. He had to at least put on an act. Another half an hour passed. Xing Hongxian returned. She rushed into the room and found him. "Have you found it?" Standing beside a vase, Hanju turned around and said, "I couldn't find it. I searched everywhere, but couldn't find it." All of a sudden, he noticed that Xing Hongxian was covered in blood. Had she killed Zhang Ge? Hanju retreated subconsciously and accidentally knocked over the vase on the table. Ping! The vase fell to the floor and shattered. Hanju saw a manual appearing in the broken vase with 2 words carved on it. Alchemy recipe. Silence. The room was so quiet that a dropping needle would have been heard. Hanju was stunned and felt extremely awkward. Damn it. Is this how Elder Iron hides his things? Xing Hongxian shifted her gaze from the alchemy recipe to him. It looked as if there was a bottomless abyss in her eyes. Visit Light Novel World. Com for the best novel reading experience, Hanju said in surprise. He actually hid it in a vase. This old man really knows how to hide things. Steal the alchemy recipe, gain Xing Hongshuan's favor, and obtain hatred level of 5 stars from the Jade Pure Sect. Defy and not allow Xing Hongxian to obtain the alchemy recipe. After Xing Hongxian leaves, you will obtain the sword technique. Unparalleled Finger Divine Sword. Hanju was extremely nervous. He tried his best to look pleasantly surprised as he prepared for Xing Hongxian to attack him any moment. Xing Hongxian suddenly walked forward and grabbed his hand tightly. She smiled excitedly and said, "You're really my lucky charm. I'm happy as long as you're happy. Xing Hongshuan's favorable impression of you has increased. She can become your companion. Her favorable impression of you is at the level of 3 stars. Hanju smiled bitterly at the line of words that appeared before him. However, Xing Hongxian didn't notice it. She walked around him, picked up the recipe, and began to flip through it. She seemed to be looking for something. Hanju waited nervously. Should he make a move? If Xing Hongxian took the recipe away, he wouldn't be able to obtain the sword technique. Xing Hongxian seemed to be injured, and her breathing was unstable. Ambush her? So that she will back off and give up? Just as Han Ju was hesitating, a gust of cold wind swept through the door. Han Ju was caught off guard and was sent flying, crashing into the wall and rebounding to the ground. Not really painful,
just a little scary.
Han Ju stared in the direction. It was Elder Iron. He tilted his neck and shook his right leg vigorously. He was pretending to have passed out. Put down my alchemy recipes, Elder Iron said coldly. Xing Hongxian talked back coldly. You're actually back. Elder Iron said expressionlessly, I've been back for a long time, but I've been waiting for you to show up. The last time I came back, I saw the two of you the moment I arrived. All these years, the other disciples have not accepted any of my missions. Only the two of you have. There must be something fishy. With that, Elder Iron suddenly launched an attack at Xing Hongxian, pushing his palm at her. In his palm was a talisman. As Xing Hongxian instinctively jumped away, a lightning bolt shot out from Elder Iron's palm and wrapped around her. Elder Iron then kicked Xing Hongxian, sending her flying backward. Almost instantly, Elder Iron snatched the alchemy recipe back. Xing Hongxian landed on the ground, her body twitching uncontrollably. With his advantage, Elder Iron continued pursuing Xing Hongxian, causing her to flee. The two of them zoomed out one after another. Lying on the ground, Han Ju hesitated whether he should get up. Follow current novels on Light Novel World. No. If he got up, he wouldn't be able to avoid suspicion. Han Ju also thought about escaping, but it was too dangerous. He didn't even know where to run to. So, he waited patiently. After an hour, Han Ju couldn't help but scratch his butt. Then, he suddenly felt an aura approaching the pavilion. It was Elder Iron. Han Ju didn't dare to move. As he entered the pavilion, Elder Iron noticed him and frowned. Han Ju suddenly coughed. Elder Iron walked to a nearby chair and sat down, quietly staring at him. Han Ju displayed the best and most realistic acting skills ever. He rubbed his head and got up. Looking around in confusion, he was pleasantly surprised to see Elder Iron. Elder Iron, you're finally back. Han Ju shrunk his neck and looked around nervously. He carefully asked, then, where did the witch go? Elder Iron looked at him expressionlessly. Han Ju hurriedly stood up and lowered his head before Elder Iron, looking uneasy.
Han Ju was gambling.
He was gambling that Elder Iron didn't notice the communication between Xing Hongxian and him. If he discovered it, Han Ju could only go all out. What did she tell you? Elder Iron asked. Han Ju didn't dare to hide anything and answered truthfully.
Humph.
She wants to train you to be her husband. What a joke. Elder Iron was so angry that he laughed. This kid must be daydreaming. He examined Han Ju carefully. It's actually true. This kid had really become handsome. Just based on his looks and gaze, he wasn't inferior to those inner sect disciples at all. The changes were too great. Follow current novels on Light Novel World. Could it be? Elder Iron stretched out his hand and grabbed Han Ju's right wrist, pondering carefully. Nervous, Han Ju was ready to attack at any time. This kid doesn't have a cultivation potential or cultivation. Am I overthinking? Old Iron silently thought. Seeing Han Ju's fearful and anxious appearance, he couldn't help but think of his parents, and his mood immediately became irritable. He snapped, "Go back to sleep." Han Ju heaved a sigh of relief, hurriedly bowed, then left the pavilion quickly. Elder Iron began to tidy up the room. Back in his room, Han Ju quietly went to bed. As you did not help Xing Hongxian steal the alchemy recipe, you successfully obtained the sword technique. Unparalleled finger divine sword. Han Ju was in a good mood. He finally had a life-saving technique. He immediately chose to inherit it. A wave of memories surged into his mind. The unparalleled finger divine sword wasn't considered a martial art, but a magical spell. He could brandish his finger as a sword, and the spirit chi would transform into a blade. Hanju was very talented with sword techniques and was able to master the magical spell in one night. However, he didn't expose himself and maintained a low profile. The next day, after Hanju woke up, he heard the other servants say that Zhang Ge had died. It was said that he died a miserable death, bleeding from all 7 orifices. The male cultivator guarding the herb garden also left early in the morning. Something big seemed to have happened last night. Hanju couldn't help but mourn for Zhang Ge. Xing Hongshuan's favorable impression of you has increased. She can become your companion. Her favorable impression of you is at the level of 3. 5 stars. Hanju was stunned. Why did she become more affectionate towards me? Ridiculous. However, Xing Hongxian probably wouldn't dare to show up again for the time being, and Hanju could cultivate in peace. Half a month later, Elder Iron left the herb garden again. He had been going out more frequently in the past 10 years. Hanju heard from Old Man Wang that Elder Iron seemed to be nearing the end of his life and was looking for herbs to increase his lifespan. This content is taken from Light Novel World. Not everyone could break through easily like Hanju. Elder Iron's cultivation level was stuck at the 7th level of the Qi refinement realm and could not increase further. This was the difference in cultivation potential. Elder Iron was a typical mortal cultivator who wanted to change his fate. Hanju prayed in his heart, hoping that this old man would die on the way. The reason he had such a vicious thought was that he noticed that Elder Iron still had a level of hatred of 1 star towards him. Elder Iron was a potential enemy. In the blink of an eye, 2 years passed. The 20-year-old Hanju had cultivated all 4 spiritual roots to the 9th level of the Qi refining realm. As long as he cultivated his lightning and fire cultivation potential to the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm, he could begin preparing to break through to the foundation establishment realm. However, there was no lightning or fire spiritual Qi around the herb garden. Hanju knew that it was time for him to leave. That night, he quietly left. Hanju still had 1,000 superior-grade spirit stones that he had yet to take out. This would be the source of his confidence in traveling the cultivation world. Along the way, Hanju used his divine sense to search his surroundings as he walked. He was prepared to pay a visit to the Jade Pure sect and become its disciple. The Jade Pure sect probably wouldn't reject a cultivator at the 9th level of Qi refinement realm. The next morning, Hanju finally found the Jade Pure sect. The sect was located in a valley between mountains. Mysterious mist pervaded the air, and 2 huge stone statues flanked the gate. They looked like Kirin statues. "Stop right there. Show us your sect pass," said a disciple of the Jade Pure sect as he raised his sword. A total of 4 disciples were guarding the entrance of the Jade Pure sect, and all of them were at the 5th level of the Qi refinement realm. Hanju turned off the concealment function and clasped his hands. "I'm Hanju, a rogue cultivator at the 9th level of Qi refinement realm. Do I have any way to join the Jade Pure sect?" The 9th level of Qi refinement realm. The 4 disciples' attitudes instantly changed. The sword-wielding disciple told the disciple beside him, and the latter disciple quickly left. "Wait a moment. I've sent someone to inform the outer sect warden," said the sword-wielding disciple. Hanju thanked him. In the Jade Pure sect, other than Elder Iron, no other cultivator knew his name. Elder Iron had yet to return and might have died outside, so Hanju wasn't worried about exposing his identity. In any case, he had done nothing to harm the Jade Pure sect, so nothing was stopping him from joining the sect. Updated from Light Novel World.
Calm.
Hanju didn't have to wait long before an outer sect warden arrived. Hanju didn't have to wait long before an outer sect warden arrived. He was also at the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm. "I'm an outer sect warden of the Jade Pure sect, Yang Luo. Brother Han, can you let me do a quick check?" Fiendish cultivators occasionally tried to infiltrate the Jade Pure sect in the past few years, the outer sect warden said politely, cupping his hands. Hanju didn't have anything on him and wasn't afraid of a check. He raised his hands. Yang Luo began to feel around. After he finished searching, he asked doubtfully, Why do you not even have a storage ring or a storage pouch? Hanju helplessly said, I was attacked by a Foundation establishment realm fiendish cultivator on my way here. To stay alive. Yeah, I'm sure you understand. Yang Luo was silent and looked at him sympathetically. Can you show your spiritual energy? Yang Luo asked. Hanju could understand. It was to check if he was a fiendish cultivator. He immediately raised his right hand, wielding his finger like a sword and pointing towards the cliff at the side.
Swish.
A beam of spirit chi shot out from his index finger, piercing into the rocks. Yang Luo's eyes lit up. What kind of spell is this? He didn't ask, but he could feel that Hanju wasn't a fiendish cultivator. No problem, follow me. I'll bring you to the outer sect for registration. From now on, you're an outer sect disciple of the Jade Pure sect. Yang Luo smiled. Then, he led Hanju into the valley. As Hanju walked, he asked, how many outer sect disciples are there? What are the conditions to enter the inner sect? There are more than 2,000 disciples in the outer sect. Only those who have reached Foundation establishment can enter the inner sect. However, Foundation establishment is very difficult. Every 3 years, the sect will hold a sect competition. The top 3 will all receive Foundation establishment pills. Foundation establishment pills can help a 9th layer Qi refinement realm cultivator break through to the Foundation establishment realm. Are there many inner sect disciples? I'm not sure about that. The Jade Pure sect's inner sect is located in a small world. We have no idea what's happening inside. This content is taken from Light Novel World. It seems like Jade Pure sect is very powerful. Of course. The Jade Pure sect is the most prestigious and established cultivation sect in the Great Yen. Does the Jade Pure sect have places to cultivate with lightning and fire spiritual qi? There aren't any in the outer sect, but there might be in the inner sect. If you have a thunder cultivation potential, you can appeal to the Elder Hall. Perhaps they can make an exception and allow you to enter the inner sect. Having rare cultivation potentials like this is normally enough for the sect to especially nurture you. Yang Luo was secretly surprised. Could it be that this guy also had a thunder cultivation potential? Hanju's eyes brightened as he asked, as long as I have a thunder cultivation potential? Yang Luo nodded. Brother Yang, can you nominate me? If I can enter the inner sect, I will never forget your kindness, Hanju said in a low voice. He raised his right hand, and sparks crackled in his palm. Yang Luo's pupils contracted. The outer sect warden of the Jade Pure sect, Yang Luo, has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star. Yang Luo laughed. Since you're already calling me brother, I naturally have to help you with this matter. I'll make an exception and explain this to the Elder Hall. Thank you, Brother Yang. I'm very grateful. Sure. Yang Luo had been stuck in the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm for 20 years. It was very difficult for him to make any more breakthroughs in his cultivation. The only thing he could do was to form connections. Following Yang Luo, Hanju saw many outer sect disciples meditating along the way. The outer sect did not allocate special cultivation grounds and cave abodes for the disciples. Everyone just randomly found a place to practice their breathing techniques and were not to cause trouble. Soon, Hanju arrived at the outer sect's buildings. Most of the buildings were very similar to Elder Iron's buildings and looked antique. There were also many disciples on the streets. Other than cultivators, there were also mortals. It turned out that there were also many mortal slaves in the cultivation sect. Slaves were not only needed by alchemists. Mortals were also willing to serve them. At the very least, they wouldn't encounter any life-threatening situations and would be able to fill their stomach. The Elder Hall was located in the center of the valley. It had 4 floors, and the entire place was filled with a strange fragrance. Hanju followed Yang Luo in. Yang Luo walked to the counter and said, a 9th level Qi refinement realm cultivator wants to join our Jade Pure sect. The first floor wasn't big, and there was only an old man at the counter. The old man glanced at Hanju, causing him to uncontrollably tense up. He couldn't tell the old man's cultivation level. Could he be a Foundation establishment realm cultivator? The old man responded and turned around to take a small rectangular wooden block from the wooden cabinet behind him. Yang Luo asked in a low voice, "Is the first elder here? This person has a thunder cultivation potential and wants to enter the inner court." Thunder cultivation potential? The old man looked at Hanju in surprise. He waved his hand. Hanju immediately walked up to the old man. At the same time, he made the system only reveal his thunder, fire, and wind cultivation potentials. Triple cultivation potential. The old man was shocked. Triple cultivation potential. Yang Luo wasn't surprised. Instead, he looked slightly envious. "Register yourself first. You will be an outer sect disciple for the time being. When the first elder returns, I will tell him about this matter," the old man said in a low voice. Hanju started the registration. After that, Hanju received the sect pass, a storage bag, a jade pure sect Taoist robe, 100 low-grade spirit stones, and a bottle of qi condensation pills. Yang Luo personally arranged for him to stay in a wooden house not far from his. "All right, Brother Han, you should rest first. Someone will inform you when there's news. I still have things to do." Yang Luo smiled. Hanju cupped his fists and watched him leave. Yang Luo's attitude made him feel very real. It was different from what was written in novels. Even if Yang Luo wanted to form a good relationship with him, he wouldn't deliberately try to please him. For more, visit Light Novel World. They were all cultivators. He wasn't going to be a simp just because Hanju had better potential. Hanju closed the door and started to cultivate. He could finally cultivate without any worries. Something surprising happened again. He could actually sense fire spiritual qi here. Hanju decided to first cultivate his fire cultivation potential to the 9th level of the qi refinement realm. Generally speaking, cultivators would only choose one technique to cultivate. Most cultivation techniques only had a single elemental attribute. Very few people would cultivate with 6 elemental attributes like Hanju. Hanju's cultivation potential was top-notch, and he didn't feel tired at all. He enjoyed the feeling of becoming stronger. More accurately, it was the feeling of his lifespan increasing. When Hanju saw the attributes panel, his first thought was to live forever. He didn't want fame or fortune. He didn't want to marry a beauty. He only wanted to live for very long. He didn't want to suffer from a terminal disease and die at a young age again. With my cultivation potential, I don't need to take risks and seek opportunities. I need to cultivate diligently and never cause trouble. If I can avoid provoking my enemies, then I shouldn't provoke them unless they want to kill me. Hanju thought silently. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Hanju's fire cultivation had reached the 4th level of the qi refinement realm. The outer sect first elder finally returned, and Yang Luo personally came to inform him. Hanju packed up his things, tied the storage bag on his waist, and followed him to the elder hall. Initially, the elder hall had already forgotten about this matter. "I happened to pass by your door and noticed that you were still cultivating, so I suddenly remembered it. I'm sure the first elder would like a diligent cultivator like you." Yang Luo smiled. His tone was full of admiration. Follow current novels on Light Novel World. Hanju didn't open his door for half a year. If not for the spiritual qi fluctuation inside, others would have thought that it was an empty room. Hanju smiled and said, "Many thanks, Brother Yang. If I have the chance to obtain more foundation establishment pills in the future, I will definitely obtain one for you." Elder Hall. Elder Hall. Hanju met the first elder. The first elder was plump and resembled Maitreya Buddha. He had a smile on his face, and his eyes curved into 2 lines. He sized up Hanju and said with satisfaction, his temperament is comparable to inner sect disciples and almost equivalent to an elite disciple. The jade pure sect robe was white with blue stripes. After Hanju wore it, his charm was completely unleashed. He didn't look like a servant at all. Many female cultivators peeped at him on the way here. "I cannot be compared to the elite disciples," Hanju said humbly. The Grand Elder smiled and said, "Let's go. Follow me to the inner sect." If you want to join the inner sect, you have to find a master. There are 18 peaks and 18 missionary elders in the inner sect. If anyone is fond of you, you can directly become an inner sect disciple. If not, you can only participate in the outer sect competition and strive to reach foundation establishment as soon as possible. I understand. The two of them then left the elder hall. The old man at the counter clicked his tongue in wonder. This child's fire attribute spiritual energy has increased by quite a bit. It seems that he has been diligently cultivating for half a year. Yang Luo laughed. That's right, he didn't leave his room even once. He has good talent and is willing to cultivate diligently. Who knows, he might even become an elite disciple in the future. The old man shook his head and laughed. He didn't say anything else. He had been here for more than 100 years and had seen geniuses more talented than Hanju. He only felt a little emotional but didn't think too much about it. They didn't speak on the way. Following the first elder, Hanju arrived at a teleportation formation in the corner of the valley. Several disciples were guarding this place. The teleportation formation was very much like an altar. It was a circular stone platform with strange patterns engraved on it. Stone pillars were erected in all directions, and there were many irregular dents on them, which were especially used to insert spirit stones. This was Hanju's first time using a teleportation formation. He was very nervous, but he didn't dare to show it, afraid of embarrassing himself. The outer sect disciples began placing spirit stones. What kind of training style do you prefer? The first elder suddenly asked. The various peaks have different cultures because of the different personalities of the coaching elders. Some are competitive, some are low-key, and some are out on missions all year round. Hanju replied, I'm a low-profile cultivator. I don't like crowds, and I don't like being high-profile. Follow new episodes on the Light Novel World. Calm platform. The first elder revealed a strange smile and said, Then, I'll bring you to the Jade Serene Peak first. At this moment, the teleportation formation was activated and a strong light burst out, causing Hanju to close his eyes. Hanju felt a strong sense of weightlessness. Any other mortal would have vomited. About 3 seconds passed. Hanju opened his eyes, and what he saw was a mountain peak that reached into the clouds. The sea of clouds filled his vision, and he felt as if he were standing on a cloud. Under his feet was the teleportation formation, and in front of him was a stone step that led to the city. The city was located on a lower peak compared to the surrounding 18 mountain peaks. However, when Hanju looked down from the teleportation formation, it was like a 10,000-foot-high cliff. Due to the clouds and mist, he couldn't see the ground. The city on the lower peak was very big. Many cultivators could be seen flying with their swords in the sky. There were even various kinds of ferocious birds. That's the inner sect of the Jade Pure Sect. You can do missions and collect your salary here. You can also trade inside. The first elder introduced the inner sect with a proud tone. Hanju was stunned. He had thought that the Jade Pure Sect was a small sect like in the cultivation dramas. He didn't expect it to be so big. He thought he had arrived at an immortal world. He had truly underestimated the strength of the Jade Pure Sect. After all, he had been staying in the herb garden for the past 20 years, and his activity was limited to a radius of 2 kilometers. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him a caged bird. The first elder waved his hand. Hanju felt something lifting him and almost fell. He looked down and saw a huge gourd under his feet. Stand firm. If you fall, you'll die even if you're at the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm. The first elder laughed heartily. Hanju quickly covered the bottom of his feet with spiritual force to stick himself to the gourd surface. The huge gourd carried them towards one of the taller peaks. The other huge peaks had disciples traveling in and out, and only this one seemed inactive. The coaching elder of Jade Serene Peak is Fairy Shixian. Her cultivation level is unfathomable. She likes to cultivate in seclusion, with peace and silence. Therefore, Jade Serene Peak is not lively. In addition, she doesn't allow her disciples to develop feelings for each other and become companions. Therefore, there are very few disciples. The disciples who stay on Jade's serene peak are basically all ascetics, the great elder said with a smile. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel World. Calm Hanju raised his eyebrows and said, "Really? That's great." He was afraid of female cultivators pestering him. After all, his charm was unparalleled. The first elder shook his head and laughed. The first elder of the outer sect of the Jade Pure sect has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star. A line of words appeared in front of Hanju. He was baffled. Soon, they arrived at the palace complex of the Jade's serene peak and flew straight to the main hall. His mouth moved slightly as the first elder stood in front of the door. He was probably using a voice transmission technique.
Boom.
The front door opened. The first elder led Hanju in. The hall was dark. As they walked in, the oil lamps on both sides lit up. Hanju's gaze landed on the two figures meditating in front. Two female cultivators. One of the female cultivators wore a blue robe and had a graceful bearing. Her appearance could be described as devastatingly beautiful. She was probably Fairy Shixian. The female cultivator behind her should be a disciple. Her temperament and appearance were quite different, but she was still a beauty. Fairy Shixian opened her eyes and looked at Hanju. As the first elder approached, he smiled and said, "This child's name is Hanju. He's an itinerant cultivator with a triple cultivation potential and also possesses a rare thunder cultivation potential. On the way here, I asked and found out that he also likes quiet and peaceful training grounds. He doesn't want to be too high-profile." Hanju bowed. "Changyuer has developed a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 2 stars, 2 stars, just like that." The source of this content is Light Novel World. Calm how shallow. Hanju complained in his head and became nervous. Jade's serene peak is not living up to its name. Are the female disciples all so desperate? Fairy Shixian opened her mouth and warned, "If you join my peak, I will not treat you any better than others. Everything will depend on you. In terms of cultivation, I won't neglect to teach you. But if you slack off, I will chase you out of the peak." Hanju immediately promised, "As long as there are no instructions, I can enter seclusion for 100 years and never leave my house." Really? Absolutely true. Fairy Shixian has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star. Changyuer's favorability towards you has decreased. Current favorability, 1 star. Lines of words appeared in front of Hanju. He couldn't help but look down on Changyuer. "Are you so desperate for love? This is a land of cultivation. Do you know any spells? Attack me. Let me see your ability," Fairy Shixian asked. Hanju nodded and decided to go all out. This Jade Serene peak suited him too well. If it were any other peak, he would be annoyed to death by female cultivators like Changyuer. Hanju was definitely not heartless. He also liked women, but women were definitely not as important as lifespan. Right now, he only wanted to cultivate. Lust is a knife in disguise. Once his cultivation had reached a phenomenal stage, he would be able to nurture a few companions to play with. However, he wouldn't use his true feelings. He would only cultivate together with them. Hanju channeled the spiritual power in his body and pointed his right hand at Fairy Shixian. Sword chi burst forth from his 5 fingers, condensing into a palm-sized sword chi that shot towards Fairy Shixian like lightning. The source of this content is Light Novel World. Calm just as it was about to touch Fairy Shixian, the sword chi dissipated into thin air. Fairy Shixian's beautiful hair began to flutter. Changyuer's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability, 2 stars. Hanju looked at the notification and waited for Fairy Shixian to speak. Hanju looked at the notification and waited for Fairy Shixian to speak. Fairy Shixian asked, "Is this the only move you know?"
Yes.
Hanju was very honest. He didn't want to pretend to be better. This sword technique is not bad. All right, you may stay at the Jade Serene Peak. Fairy Shixian nodded slightly. The Grand Elder laughed. I shouldn't disturb you anymore then. He nodded at Hanju and left. Fairy Shixian stared at Hanju and said, Aren't you going to kneel and acknowledge me as your master? Hanju came back to his senses and immediately knelt. Disciple Hanju greets master. Long live master. Fairy Shixian couldn't help but laugh. Do you think I'm an empress? Hanju didn't look up. Fairy Shixian thought to herself, this child carries himself well. His temperament is also not bad. She took out a token from her sleeve and handed it to Chang Yuer. Bring your junior to the inner sect to register and arrange a cave abode for him. Yes, master. Chang Yuer carefully stood up. Hanju stood up and bowed, then left with Chang Yuer. Just as they walked out of the palace, the door closed behind them. Junior Han, my name is Chang Yuer. From now on, you can call me Senior Chang. You're a newcomer, so if there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me. Chang Yuer smiled and met Hanju's gaze. She didn't feel shy and stared straight at him. Hanju lowered his head slightly and said, Thank you, Senior Chang. I wouldn't dare to trouble you, but if you need a helping hand, you can tell me at any time. Hee hee, you're such a nice person. He's more handsome than the other male seniors and juniors. This was the first time Chang Yuer had met such a handsome man, and his attitude and personality made him very comfortable to interact with. For more, visit Light Novel World. She swore to herself that she must protect Junior Han and not let him be bullied. The two of them went all the way to the edge of the cliff, chattering and laughing all along. Chang Yuer took out her flying sword and let Hanju stand behind her, hugging her waist. Hanju hesitated. Other than you, the other male juniors don't have a chance to hug me by my waist. Chang Yuer snorted. But in fact, Hanju was the first male junior she had met. In the entire Jade Serene Peak, only Hanju was her junior. It had been years since Jade Serene Peak had a new disciple. Since she had already said that, Hanju didn't want to be pretentious. He had to agree that Senior Chang had a slim waist. 2 hours later, Chang Yuer brought Hanju to a cave entrance and said, Inside is your cave abode. My cave abode is right beside it. You can cultivate in peace. So close? Hanju looked in the direction she pointed. The entrance of her cave was 100 meters away. Hanju sighed in his head, but he still thanked Chang Yuer. The two bid farewell. After entering the cave, Hanju saw a knob on the wall of the cave. After twisting it, a stone door closed at the entrance of the cave. Immediately after, the cave lit up. He walked towards the end of the tunnel. The cave was about 100 square meters. There was a bed, a table, and a wooden cabinet. He was treated well. Hanju sat on the bed and took out the newly obtained inner sect storage bag. The inner sect storage bag was 10 times larger than the outer sect storage bag. It had a space of 100 cubic meters. He obtained Jade Serene Peak's Taoist robe, a flying sword technique manual, Jade Serene Peak's token, 100 middle-grade spirit stones, and a bottle of qi condensation pills. Through Chang Yuer, Hanju learned that a high-grade spirit stone was equivalent to 100 middle-grade spirit stones. A middle-grade spirit stone was equivalent to 100 low-grade spirit stones. Spirit stones could be used for cultivation or currency. He immediately retrieved the 1,000 superior-grade spirit stones from his attribute panel and placed them into his storage bag. This amount of spirit stones was enough to make Hanju rich. The providence of being the descendant of an immortal emperor was indeed amazing. He was given 1,000 superior-grade spirit stones from the start. Visit Light Novel World. For a better experience, Hanju opened his characteristic panel and checked his interpersonal relationships. Chang Yuer, second stage foundation establishment realm. She treats you as her younger brother. Current favorability, 2 stars. Fairy Shixian, third level of the nascent soul realm. Your master admires your temperament. Current favorability, 1 star, treats me like a younger brother? Hanju was speechless. Favorability didn't mean romantic affection. He was thinking too highly of himself. However, he was very surprised by Fairy Shixian's cultivation. She was a nascent soul realm cultivator. The outer sect's first elder was only at the foundation establishment realm. The Qi refinement, the foundation establishment, the golden core, and the nascent soul realms were all the realms that he was aware of so far. In other words, Fairy Shixian was the strongest cultivator he had encountered so far. Not bad, not bad. Han Ju thought happily. He packed up his things and started reading the Flying Sword Technique manual. He had to master the Flying Sword Technique. Otherwise, he would have to hug onto a senior's slim waist whenever he needed to go down the mountain. His top-notch sword technique talent allowed him to master the Flying Sword Technique in an hour. He dripped blood on the flying sword to make it recognize him as the owner. This method was recorded in the 6 Paths of Reincarnation technique. After everything was done, he walked out of the cave abode and stepped on his flying sword. He began to circle Jade's serene peak to familiarize himself with the flying sword technique. In the Jade Serene Hall, Fairy Shixian suddenly opened her eyes as a strange look flashed across them. Is this really the first time this kid has cultivated the flying sword technique? She had eavesdropped on Han Ju and Chang Yuer's conversation before. Was he lying? If he was lying, why would he suddenly display his flying sword technique now? Fairy Shixian couldn't figure it out and decided to observe for a while longer. After Han Ju flew dozens of rounds, he quickly returned to his cave abode to cultivate. This content is taken from Light Novel World. He started to cultivate his fire spiritual power. You have successfully become an inner disciple of the Jade Pure sect and started your first cultivation after entering the sect. You can choose the following development path. Han Ju took a look and face-palmed. What the hell? Leading Jade's serene peak to become the strongest peak would instead offend Fairy Shixian? His master was very strange. Is she a fiendish cultivator spy? Han Ju shook his head and smiled, silently choosing the second option. He wasn't interested in unparalleled equipment. All he wanted was to cultivate diligently. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Han Ju successfully cultivated his fire cultivation potential to the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm. All that was left was the Thunder Spirit Qi. However, he couldn't capture any Thunder Spiritual Qi on the Jade Serene Peak. Han Ju was distressed and decided to pay a visit to his master. He immediately got up and walked out of the cave abode. He executed the flying sword technique and quickly flew to the entrance of Jade Serene Hall. He knelt in front of the door and said, "Master, I have something to ask of you." He didn't raise his voice. He was sure that Fairy Shixian could hear him. Before long, the door opened. Han Ju walked into the hall at a medium pace. He walked up to Fairy Shixian and knelt, saying, "I have cultivated my wind cultivation potential and fire cultivation to the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm. I'm only lacking the Thunder Spirit Qi before I can proceed to foundation establishment. Master, please tell me where I can find Thunder Spirit Qi." Fairy Shixian opened her eyes and frowned. "You want to cultivate all 3 types of spiritual power?" "Not 3. I'm cultivating 6 elements." "Yes, Master," Han Ju replied respectfully. Fairy Shixian said softly, "This isn't an easy path. The heavenly tribulation you encounter will also be stronger than others. You can cultivate 1 type of spiritual qi first. After you reach the golden core realm, it won't be too late to cultivate with the other spirit qi." The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel World. Earn reputation points and lead the Jade Serene Peak to become the strongest peak. You can obtain a piece of unparalleled equipment, but offend Fairy Shixian. Keep a low profile and cultivate. If you obtain Fairy Shixian's recognition, you can obtain a movement technique manual. I want to continue like this. Although it's difficult, I believe that with my will, I can succeed. I'm willing to spend all my time on cultivation, Han Ju replied. I want to continue like this. Although it's difficult, I believe that with my will, I can succeed. I'm willing to spend all my time on cultivation, Han Ju replied. Fairy Shixian didn't reject him directly, which meant there was still a chance. Fairy Shixian stared at him and said, The inner sect has a teleportation formation that leads to the Thunder spiritual pool. However, one needs 10 mid-grade spirit stones to stay in the Thunder spiritual pool for a day. At first glance, it looked cheap, but for cultivators, how could a day be enough? Hanju said in surprise, "Thank you for your guidance, master. I'm going there immediately." With that, he stood up and left in a hurry. Fairy Xixian smiled before closing her eyes and continuing to cultivate. When Hanju arrived at the inner sect city, he stopped a female disciple and asked, "Senior, sorry for disturbing you. Where's the Thunder spiritual pool?"
Can you tell me?
"That way, at the end of the road. The place that has lanterns with Thunder written on them is the Thunder spiritual pool." "Thank you, Junior." Hanju left quickly, not giving her any chance to strike up a conversation. Wherever there were people, there would be trouble. The fewer friends he made, the less trouble would find him. What are friends? We help each other, and we're friends. If you want my help, that's trouble. 10 minutes later, Hanju found the Thunder spiritual pool. Entering the pavilion, he saw a teleportation formation in the inner courtyard. He took out 100 superior-grade spirit stones. He was going to stay there for 3 years. If he left early, he could ask for a refund for the remaining time. The Jade Pure sect would never cheat their own disciples. The disciples who worked here were here to clear missions. The owner of the Thunder spiritual pool was an elder, so no one dared to cause trouble here. The disciples working here were slightly surprised by Hanju's generosity, but they didn't say anything. Although the Thunder cultivation potential was rare, the Jade Pure sect had more than a few disciples with it. When he opened his eyes again, Hanju appeared at a pool filled with hot air. Visibility was poor. The thunder clouds were very low, and he felt that he could reach out and touch them. Apart from him, another cultivator was already meditating nearby. Don't wander around in the Thunder spiritual pool. You can only cultivate by the pool. If you don't obey the rules and get killed by lightning, you deserve it. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel World. A cold snort came from behind. Hanju turned his head and saw that it was a huge tree. Its main trunk had a human face filled with sarcasm. A tree spirit. Hanju nodded at it and then walked to the side to meditate. The Thunder spiritual pool quickly fell into silence, and only the sound of thunder could be heard. Hanju was pleasantly surprised to find a lot of Thunder spiritual chi here, which made his progress cultivating his Thunder spirit energy much faster than when he had cultivated the other spirit energies. Awesome. Hanju was extremely excited. In just a short year, Hanju had successfully cultivated his Thunder cultivation potential to the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm. He didn't leave, but prepared to enter Foundation establishment. Previously, he had already cultivated all the different types of spiritual energy to the max, and had also reached the max for the Thunder spirit energy now. He had maxed out all 6 spiritual energies. He could go for Foundation establishment immediately. Foundation establishment required Foundation establishment pills, but that was only for mortals. Hanju had top-tier cultivation potential. The first level of the 6 paths of reincarnation technique taught him a method to avoid heavenly tribulation. It was a very hardline approach. He would absorb the heavenly tribulation. The 6 paths of reincarnation would absorb the lightning from the heavenly tribulation and convert it into Thunder spirit energy, helping him further his cultivation. A month later, Hanju started to break through to Foundation establishment. It just so happened there were few people in the Thunder spiritual pool. Even if he succeeded in reaching the Foundation establishment realm, it wouldn't attract too much attention. Meditating, Hanju kept changing his moves and practiced the 6 paths of reincarnation technique. 6 types of spiritual energy revolved in his body, forming 6 colored whirlpools in his dantian. The tree spirit suddenly opened its eyes and looked at him in surprise. The cultivator nearby also opened his eyes. The lightning in the Thunder spiritual pool began to gather towards Hanju. Is he trying to enter Foundation establishment? The cultivator's face twitched. He silently distanced himself from Hanju, afraid that he would be struck by the heavenly tribulation. An hour later, visit Light Novel World. Calm for the best novel reading experience. Streaks of lightning interweaved above Hanju's head like dragons and snakes. The strange thing was that these lightning bolts disappeared the moment they touched him. They didn't cause him any harm. The tree spirit and the cultivator frowned. What kind of cultivation technique is he using? It can counter the tribulation like this. Although they were surprised, they didn't disturb him. Disrupting others during their tribulation transcendence was a big taboo in the cultivation world. It was immoral. Relying on his exceptional cultivation potential and an unparalleled cultivation technique, Hanju's breakthrough to foundation establishment was extremely smooth. There were no surprises or danger. 3 days later, he successfully established his foundation and reached the first level of the foundation establishment realm. Congratulations on reaching the foundation establishment realm. You have the following choices. Hanju chose the second option without hesitation. After his breakthrough, he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he planned to continue cultivating his thunder spirit energy until the time was up. He first inherited the second level of the 6 paths of reincarnation technique. The next morning, he continued to cultivate. This person has a good temperament. He didn't even go out to celebrate his successful breakthrough. Instead, he continued to cultivate. The cultivator thought silently. A line of words appeared in front of Hanju. Mo Fujo has a good impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star. Hanju opened his eyes and noticed that the cultivator was staring at him. Hanju nodded at him politely. Mo Fujo nodded back. Then, the two of them continued cultivating without further communication. Hanju walked out of the Thunder Spiritual Pool and opened his attributes panel. Name: Hanju, lifespan, 27/187, race, mortal. Cultivation, level 3 of the Foundation Establishment Realm. Technique, 6 paths of reincarnation technique, can be inherited. Magic, unparalleled finger divine sword. The source of this content is Light Novel World. Calm, mystical power, none. Equipment, none. Cultivation potential, spiritual physique of the 6 paths. It contains top-notch wind, fire, water, earth, wood, and thunder cultivation potentials. Increases providence to a certain extent. Connate providence is as follows: unparalleled, immortal beauty, top-notch charm, destined sword fanatic, top-notch sword Dao aptitude, top-notch sword Dao learning ability, unparalleled movement technique, top-notch movement technique aptitude, descendant of the immortal emperor. After the game begins, you will receive an unparalleled cultivation technique and 1,000 superior grade spirit stones. Check interpersonal relationships, level 3 of the Foundation Establishment Realm. This was the cultivation level of his thunder cultivation potential. The Foundation Establishment Realm was also divided into 9 levels. He was really fast. 2 years for reaching level 3. Most importantly, his lifespan had increased to 187 years. Hanju was very satisfied. Brother, may I know your name? I'm Mo Fujo from the Heavenly Thunder Peak. A voice sounded from behind Hanju. He stopped and turned around. Hanju cupped his fists and said with a smile, I'm Hanju from Jade Serene Peak. Jade Serene Peak? No wonder I find you unfamiliar. It's a pity for someone with your talent to join the Jade Serene Peak. Do you want to come to Heavenly Thunder Peak? My master is a thunder cultivator. Mo Fujo shook his head. Hanju smiled and said, I have already acknowledged Fairy Shixian as my master. She will be my master for life. I can't betray her like that. But thank you for your kind intentions, Brother Mo. Mo Fujo smiled and said, your technique is very impressive. You reached the 3rd level of the Foundation Establishment Realm in just 2 years. You're considered one of the best in the entire inner sect. Brother Mo, you flatter me. I have no intention of comparing myself with the other inner sect disciples.
Ha ha ha.
The two of them chatted for a while before leaving. After returning to Jade Serene Peak, Hanju didn't know whether he should go greet Fairy Shixian or not. Forget it. Master's also an ascetic. I shouldn't disturb her. Hanju silently returned to his cave abode. After turning to his bed, Hanju rested for a while before checking his interpersonal relationships. This content is taken from Light Novel World. He found an email mark on the top right corner, still glowing red. Curious, he clicked on it. Become famous in the Jade Pure sect and obtain the 9 Nether Thunder art, but in turn, offend Fairy Shixian. Cultivate while keeping a low profile and reach the Golden Core realm as soon as possible. You can obtain an unparalleled magical sword. Your good friend Xing Hongxian is being hunted down by the Jade Pure sect and was severely injured. She managed to escape by luck. Your good friend Xing Hongxian is being hunted down by the Jade Pure sect and was severely injured. She managed to escape by luck. Your good friend Xing Hongxian is being hunted down by her fellow disciples and was lucky enough to counterattack. Your good friend Xing Hongxian betrayed the Viridescent Nether cult and is being hunted down. Your good friend Xing Hongxuan's favorable impression of you has increased to 4 stars. Hanju was speechless. That's very unfortunate of her. The most ridiculous thing was that for the past few years, Xing Hongxian was getting more affectionate of him. They didn't even meet again. A woman's heart is like an underwater needle. I can't get it. Hanju took a closer look. No one on his list had any progress in their cultivation. This is great. First, he set a small goal to surpass Fairy Shixian. Hanju closed the attribute panel and continued cultivating with a high spirit. 3 years later, Hanju's fire cultivation potential had reached the 3rd level of the Foundation Establishment realm. The Thunder Spiritual Pool had a much higher density of spirit chi than out here, so his cultivation had been slower. At this rate, he would need another 12 years before he would reach the 3rd level of Foundation Establishment realm for his other 4 types of spirit energy. Anyway, he could live for 187 years now. There was ample time. However, if I cultivate all 6 types of cultivation potential to the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm, I'll probably come very close to the end of my lifespan. Hanju thought silently. Cultivating all 6 elements would take 6 times longer than if he only cultivated 1. The Thunder Spiritual Pool came to Hanju's mind. It seemed like he had to make use of these spiritual pools. In the Jade Pure sect, other than the Thunder Spiritual Pool, there were other spiritual pools. There were a total of 8 attributes. The other 2 attributes were metal and ice. The Jade Pure sect was indeed very resourceful. This was good too. Hanju didn't need to change sections. This content is taken from Light Novel World. Several days later. A bell suddenly rang on Jade Serene Peak. Hanju opened his eyes and stood up immediately. Once the bell rang, it meant that Fairy Shixian was summoning all the disciples. This was the first time in the many years he had been here he was summoned. I hope it's not something troublesome. I still want to continue cultivating. Hanju thought silently. After walking out of the cave abode, he bumped into Changyue. Junior, long time no see. Hey, you've reached the Foundation Establishment realm? Changyue greeted him with a smile. Then, her eyes widened. She was only in the 2nd level of the Foundation Establishment realm and couldn't see through Hanju's cultivation level, but she could feel that Hanju's spiritual power was very strong, far beyond what Chi Refinement Realm cultivators could radiate. Hanju smiled humbly. I was just lucky. Changyue was secretly shocked. Could Junior have surpassed me? No. I have to hurry up and cultivate. I can't lose to my Junior. Changyue's favorability towards you has decreased. Current favorability. 1, 5-star.
Hanju was confused.
What the hell? Did I say something wrong? Changyue chuckled as she brought Hanju up the mountain as if nothing had happened. Along the way, they met other disciples of the Jade Serene Peak. Hanju was the youngest and had to address everyone as a senior. Different from what he had imagined, there were other male disciples in Jade Serene Peak as well. There were quite a number of them, and all of them looked imposing. There was approximately an equal number of male and female disciples. Reaching Jade Serene Hall's gate, they knelt and waited patiently. During this time, Hanju was sized up by the others. The female disciples all smiled at him, but no one developed a favorability towards him. These disciples had already cultivated here for many years, unlike Chang Yue, who had only joined the Jade Serene Peak a few years earlier than Han Ju. Follow new episodes on the light novel world. Com platform. More and more disciples arrived. When the gate opened, Han Ju counted 56 disciples in total. Even the most downtrodden Jade Serene Peak had so many disciples, let alone the other peaks. Most of the disciples were stronger than Han Ju, so he couldn't see through their cultivation. After entering the hall, Han Ju made sure he was at the back. As the junior, he naturally had to be ranked last so as to avoid offending some petty seniors. Mats had already been placed in 2 rows within the hall, allowing the disciples to sit facing each other. Han Ju sat at the back, facing Chang Yue. She winked at him like a child.
Childish.
Han Ju quietly raised his middle finger. Chang Yue didn't understand this gesture. She thought it was a secret signal and also pointed her middle finger at him. At this moment, Fairy Shi Xian spoke. Sect Master has just made a decision. In the upcoming inter-peak sparring competitions, the 3 peaks ranked last will each choose 10 disciples to go fight against the Viridescent Nether Cult. All these years, the Viridescent Nether Cult has been sending spies to scheme against our Jade Pure Sect. Sect Master is prepared to counterattack. Han Ju observed the others' expressions and realized no one was panicking. Isn't Jade Serene Peak ranked one of the lowest? Han Ju had always thought Jade Serene Peak was the weakest peak. Lu Sanqin, the first disciple, smiled and said, Master, although we aren't that outstanding, we have always been in the top 10. Don't worry. The other disciples agreed. No matter how low profile we are, it's impossible for us to be at the bottom. The Viridescent Nether Cult is getting really rampant. I heard that there are many spies of the Viridescent Nether Cult in the outer sect. We have to be careful when recruiting new disciples. The cult spies don't even cultivate fiendish techniques. We should have dealt with the Viridescent Nether Cult long ago. Every time I go out to train, I will meet their pompous disciples. Han Ju listened in silence. Fairy Shi Xian said, I'm naturally not worried about the ranking. However, this also means that the Jade Pure Sect and the Viridescent Nether Cult will fight sooner or later. So, take up missions regarding the Viridescent Nether Cult from now on. Although we keep a low profile, we should still contribute to the sect. The disciples nodded. Visit Light Novel World. Com for a better experience, Han Ju. Fairy Shi Xian suddenly called out. Han Ju hurriedly got up. The other disciples looked at him. You reached the 3rd level of the Foundation Establishment Realm from the 9th level of the Qi Refinement Realm in just a few years after entering the peak. Seems like you're a genius, said Fairy Shi Xian with a smile. Hearing this, everyone's expressions changed. The speed of progression was unbelievable. Han Ju replied, I was just lucky. Master, I don't want to be high profile. Recently, the sect has come up with a nurturing program that targets the most outstanding geniuses of each peak. They will be groomed together and will become the trump cards of the younger generation of the Jade Pure Sect. I would like to recommend you, said Fairy Shi Xian with a smile. The way the disciples looked at him changed. Han Ju immediately knelt and said in fear and trepidation, Master, I don't want to go. I don't deserve it. I only want to stay on Jade Serene Peak and cultivate in peace. I don't want to fight for fame and fortune. Furthermore, I'm new here. I should leave such an opportunity to my seniors. It's definitely a trap. Han Ju knew what was going on. Even if he was really a top-notch genius, he didn't have the qualifications to become a core disciple of the sect right after entering. How can it not be a trap? Is Fairy Shi Xian testing me? If he was a spy from the Viridescent Nether Cult, he would definitely seize this opportunity. Really? Fairy Shi Xian narrowed her eyes. Han Ju nodded and said, Absolutely. Fairy Shi Xian nodded. Han Ju heaved a sigh of relief and sat down. The stares of the other disciples softened. Lu Sanqin has a good impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star. I knew it. The first disciple wants to go. It would be a huge embarrassment for the first disciple if he weren't given this chance. Fairy Xixian looked at Lu Sanqin and said, "It should be you then. You're the first disciple of Jade's Serene Peak. Don't cause trouble." "I understand." Lu Sanqin smiled, and the other disciples congratulated him. Follow new episodes on the Light Novel World. Com platform. After leaving the Jade's Serene Peak, Hanju was about to return to his cave abode when Lu Sanqin approached him and placed a hand on his shoulder. After leaving the Jade's Serene Peak, Hanju was about to return to his cave abode when Lu Sanqin approached him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Lu Sanqin smiled and said, "Junior, I appreciate your good intentions. If you encounter any trouble in the future, feel free to ask me for help." Hanju blinked and said, "I wish you success, Senior." How could he deny a favor that came knocking on his door? Haha. Lu Sanqin laughed and left. Hanju had only taken a few steps when Changyue caught up to him. "Junior, you haven't done any sect missions yet, right? Do you want me to guide you through one?" Changyue asked with a smile. "No thanks, I want to cultivate. Cultivating in the cave abode is very slow. You can earn spirit stones by completing missions and then go to various spiritual pools to cultivate. It's much more efficient. At the same time, you'll also get contribution points by completing missions. If your contribution points are high, you can buy pills." "Never mind. I'm afraid of death." "How can we cultivators be afraid of death? If you're not afraid of death, why are you cultivating? You?" Changyue was vexed with him. Why is this junior so cowardly? Hanju didn't go because he had a lot of spirit stones. So be it. Changyue turned around and left. Hanju fell into deep thought. Indeed, he couldn't cultivate in the cave abode. He had to go to the spiritual pools. It would be too risky to go after 100 years when he was closer to death. Thinking that, Hanju immediately headed towards the inner sect city. 10 years passed in a flash. Hanju had been wandering around the various spiritual pools. He had spent nearly 400 superior grade spirit stones. His cultivation level had reached the 5th level of the Foundation Establishment realm, and all 6 types of cultivation potentials had reached the 5th level of the Foundation Establishment realm. At this rate, even if he spent the remaining 400 or so superior grade spirit stones, he still wouldn't be able to reach the Golden Core realm. Hanju began to concentrate on cultivating the Thunder spiritual energy and Fire spiritual energy. Follow new episodes on the Light Novel World. Com platform. He couldn't spend all the spirit stones. There would definitely be expenses later on. Another 10 years. He might as well finish cultivating his Thunder cultivation potential at the spiritual pool and then cultivate his Fire spiritual energy in the cave abode. That's it. After making up his mind, Hanju headed straight to the Thunder spiritual pool. No cultivator could be seen in the Thunder spiritual pool. But Hanju wasn't afraid of loneliness. "Brat, you're here again. I thought you were a genius before. Why are you still only at the 3rd level of the Foundation Establishment realm after so many years?" The tree's spirit couldn't help but tease. Hanju shrugged his shoulders and said, "It's precisely because I have no talent. That's why I cultivate so diligently." True. After saying that, the tree demon closed his eyes. Hanju was a regular visitor, so he didn't need to remind him. Soon, Hanju entered his cultivation state. Time quickly passed. Year after year passed. 5 years later, Hanju's Thunder cultivation potential had already reached the 7th stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Mo Fuzhou had returned with a female disciple. This female disciple was extremely beautiful, and her mannerisms also had the bearing of a noble lady. "Brother Han, you're also here," Mo Fuzhou said with surprise. Hanju opened his eyes. He smiled and replied, "Brother Mo, you're here too?" Mo Fuzhou was an absolute genius. Through his interpersonal relationships, Hanju noticed that he had already reached the 9th level of Foundation Establishment. Although nearly 20 years had passed, to be able to break through 2 levels in the Foundation Establishment realm and head towards the Golden Core realm, what else could one be but a genius? Let me introduce you. This is my junior at Heavenly Thunder Peak. She's also my younger sister from my clan, Emoju, Emo Fujo said with a smile. Hanju cupped his hands and said, I'm Hanju from Jade's Serene Peak. Emoju nodded and carefully sized him up. She asked, why are you still at the 3rd level of the Foundation Establishment realm? My elder brother said that you might already be at the 6th level. Hanju smiled and said, I want to do it steadily. Hey, let's quickly start our cultivation. For more, visit Light Novel World. Calm with that, he sat down. Although Emo Fujo was curious about his cultivation level, he didn't ask further. The two of them quickly began to meditate. Not long after, they were surprised to discover that Hanju's absorption speed far exceeded theirs. What kind of cultivation technique is he cultivating? No, it's his cultivation potential. Emo Fujo was shocked. Emo Zhu also looked at Hanju in surprise. Hanju wasn't bothered by their reaction. He had to hurry. Every minute was spirit stones. 3 years later, Emo Fujo and Emo Zhu prepared to leave. Emo Fujo looked at Hanju. He wanted to say something, but seeing how focused Hanju was, he didn't want to disturb him. The two left the Thunder spiritual pool. Brother, why didn't Hanju's cultivation level increase? Emo Zhu asked curiously. Given the speed at which Hanju absorbed spiritual qi, he should have broken through long ago. Emo Fujo had a complicated look in his eyes as he said, this person definitely has a method to suppress his cultivation level. I'm afraid his cultivation level has already caught up to mine. 9th stage Foundation Establishment realm. Emo Zhu widened her beautiful eyes and said, you said that 20 years ago, he was only at the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm. So fast. Emo Fujo took a deep breath and said, Jade's Serene Peak is packed with ascetics. I didn't expect such a genius to appear. Let's go. We have to work as hard as him. Emo Zhu nodded. At the same time, Hanju saw 2 lines of words. Emo Fujo's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability, 2 stars. Emo Zhu's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability, 2 stars. Hanju was indifferent. He had already reached the 9th level of Foundation Establishment realm and was currently attempting to break through. Half a year later, Hanju finally cultivated his lightning spiritual energy to perfection. Even if he wanted to cultivate it again, it would be impossible. He stood up and prepared to leave. This content is taken from Light Novel World. Calm boy, it appears that you possess a method to suppress your cultivation. You're truly remarkable, the tree spirit said with a laugh. His tone was no longer laced with mockery. Hanju shrugged and smiled. He walked to the teleportation formation and was about to leave. I have an opportunity here. Do you want to take it? Asked the tree spirit. Hanju raised his eyebrows.
No.
The tree spirit was stunned. You can get large amounts of spirit stones, sect contribution points, and even equipment and treasures. Are you sure you don't want to try? Is it dangerous? If you want a good opportunity, you naturally have to take the risk. Then, forget it. I don't want to die. You. The tree spirit trembled in exasperation and disbelief. Hanju urged, please let me out. I still have to return to my cave abode to enter seclusion. The tree spirit snorted and activated the formation, sending him out. Hanju received the refund of a year and a half worth of spirit stones in the pavilion. He still had nearly 300 spirit stones in his storage bag. He didn't return to his cave abode immediately, but headed for the salary building. After all these years, he hadn't received his salary. He should take it. The Jade Pure sect would give out salary once a year. They could leave it there and collect it in one go. The salary building was one of the most bustling pavilions in the Jade Pure sect. There were many disciples, and they had to line up to receive their pay. Hanju's temperament attracted the attention of many female cultivators. The male cultivators also quickly noticed him. As Hanju's cultivation level continued to increase, his unparalleled charisma was also fully displayed. The system could hide his cultivation, but not his charm. Who's this person? He's so handsome. I never knew we had a man like this in the Jade Pure sect. I've seen him before. He seems to be a disciple of Jade Serene Peak. TSK. He looks like he's walked out from a painting. The disciples of Jade Serene Peak all have good looks. Do any of you know his name? Hanju pretended not to notice the discussions around him. After receiving his salary, he quickly fled, causing the female cultivators who wanted to strike up a conversation to feel endless regret. Follow current novels on Light Novel World. Calm just as he walked out of the building, Hanju bumped into Mo Zhu. Brother Han, you're here. How fateful. Mo Zhu said in surprise. She quickly went up and held his arm. Hanju's face froze. The female cultivators who walked out of the salary building frowned when they saw Mo Zhu holding Hanju's arm. The female cultivators who walked out of the salary building frowned when they saw Mo Zhu holding Hanju's arm. They all wailed in their hearts. Hanju quickly pulled his back and kept a distance from her. Mo Zhu smiled warmly. Brother Han, I have something that I need your help with. The side storyline is here. Reject. Hanju shook his head and said, Sorry, I still have to go back and cultivate. Cultivate? This is a huge opportunity you don't want to miss. Have you heard of? Mo Zhu hurriedly said. She suddenly noticed the female cultivators behind Hanju and felt that it wasn't convenient to talk here, so she started dragging him away. Miss Mo, don't pull me. I'm not even afraid as a woman. As a man, how can you be afraid? Master forbids us from having romantic feelings. Pfft, we've only met twice. Do you think I'll fall in love with you? Mo Zhu's face instantly turned red. She secretly glanced at him. Brother Han was indeed good-looking. This was the first time she had seen such a good-looking man. If they became companions, even Mo Zhu's ears turned red. Hanju noticed her expression and felt that something was wrong. A sign of danger. He had yet to reach the Golden Core realm, so he couldn't have romantic feelings. Mo Zhu was beautiful, but she couldn't ruin his dedication to cultivation. Hanju immediately took a step to the side and kept a 1-meter distance from her, walking side by side. The two of them walked to a deserted alley. So, what is it? Hanju asked. Visit Light Novel World. Calm for the best novel reading experience, Mo Zhu looked around. After confirming that there was no one around, she asked in a low voice, Brother Han, have you heard of Li Qianlong? Never heard of him. What? You've never heard of Li Qianlong? Get to the point. Hanju was a bit frustrated. Although he was almost 50 years old in this lifetime, he had never left the Jade Pure sect. He couldn't even recognize the famous people of the sect, let alone the entire cultivation world. Li Qianlong is the most talented individual Jade Pure sect has seen in 100 years. It's said that he's almost at the soul formation realm. His cave abode is located on a huge mountain outside the Jade Pure sect. He has cast many forbidding spells on his cave abode, which renders it concealed. Recently, I received news that his cave abode has appeared. However, he has a beast guarding it. The beast is afraid of lightning. We're all thunder cultivators. We will definitely be able to subdue it. The more Mo Zhu spoke, the more excited she became. Hanju asked, Where's your brother? The inter-sect competition ended last year. He was chosen by the sect master to be especially groomed, so I couldn't find him. Hanju raised his eyebrows. It's over?
Crap.
He had cultivated for too long and forgot such a major event. He hoped that Fairy Shixian would not blame him. If what you said is true, why aren't the sect leaders personally going to retrieve this cave abode? Hanju asked. Mo Zhu shrugged and said, His cave abode isn't that important to the sect. However, to us Foundation establishment cultivators, it's a huge opportunity. Hanju asked, How did you know about this? A friend of mine told me. It isn't on the mission board. It must be a trap. Definitely not going. Hanju immediately refused. It's too dangerous. I'm not going. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't participate, or you'll die very miserably. With that, he turned around and left. You? Zhu stomped her feet in anger. However, it didn't negatively affect her impression of Hanju. Instead, she was beginning to hesitate. Even a genius like Hanju doesn't dare to go. Could there really be danger? Follow new episodes on the light novel world. Com platform. After returning to the Jade Serene Peak, Hanju went to the Jade Serene Hall and knelt at the gate. The intersect competition was an important event. If he was the only one who didn't go spectate from the Jade Serene Peak, he would be in huge trouble. Come in, I have something to talk to you about. Fairy Shixian's voice drifted over as the door opened. After entering the hall, Hanju discovered that Fairy Shixian wasn't alone. Chang Yuer and an old man were also present.
Wait.
This old man. He's Elder Iron. Hanju was stunned, but continued to move forward. Upon seeing him, Elder Iron's face froze in confusion. This kid is a disciple of the Jade Serene Peak as well? How can this be possible? Elder Iron was in disbelief. This is a new disciple of the Jade Serene Peak. He will be your junior from now on. You can just call him Junior Iron, said Fairy Shixian. Hanju nodded and looked at Elder Iron. Junior Iron, if you have any trouble in the future, feel free to look for me. Elder Iron gritted his teeth and said, Hanju, how did you become an inner sect disciple? He was shocked to find that he couldn't see through Hanju's cultivation. In just over 20 years, Hanju had surpassed him from a mere mortal. Fairy Shixian wasn't surprised that they knew each other. Instead, she asked, why are you still at the 3rd level of the Foundation Establishment Realm? 3rd level of the Foundation Establishment Realm. Elder Iron was even more shocked. He had worked so hard to reach the Foundation Establishment Realm, but Hanju was already at the 3rd level. Hanju was afraid that Elder Iron would sabotage him, so he had to demonstrate his value to Fairy Shixian. Thus, he no longer hid his cultivation level. Master, I'm already at the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment Realm. I just wanted to keep a low profile, so I hid my cultivation level. Elder Iron and Chang Yuer widened their eyes upon hearing that. Junior, how did you break through so quickly? Chang Yuer exclaimed. She literally watched Hanju leap from the 9th level of the Qi Refinement Realm to the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment Realm. Visit Light Novel World. Com for the best novel reading experience. It was too ridiculous. Hanju explained, I've been cultivating in the Thunder Spiritual Pool and didn't dare to slack off. That's why I made such progress. Fairy Shixian smiled in satisfaction and said, if everyone on the Jade Serene Peak was as hardworking as you, Jade Serene Peak would definitely become the strongest peak of the Jade Pure Sect. You kept a low profile to cultivate. You have successfully obtained Fairy Shixian's recognition. You're awarded with a movement technique manual. Congratulations on obtaining the 7 illusionary steps. Hanju concealed his excitement and quickly said, Master, you're flattering me. I'd just like to cultivate. That's all. Elder Iron tried his best to calm down. He knew that he couldn't suppress Hanju anymore. It was best to forget what happened in the past. If he told Fairy Shixian about it, she might become unhappy with him. He suddenly felt nervous. With Hanju's cultivation, killing him was as easy as flipping his hand.
No.
He had to resolve this grudge. Since you like to cultivate so much, I will assign you a mission to guard the Jade Pure Sect's 10,000 Demon Realm. Fairy Shixian's smile suddenly turned incomprehensible. 10,000 Demon Realm. It sounded so awesome and so dangerous. Hanju instinctively wanted to decline, but he still asked carefully, Master, what's the 10,000 Demon Realm? Chang Yuer said excitedly, it's the place where the Jade Pure Sect raises its beasts. Master, I want to go too. Let me accompany Junior Han, so that he won't be bullied. Fairy Shixian glared at her, scaring her so much that she didn't dare to say anything else. Every peak will send a disciple to guard the 10,000 Demon Realm. Because there are many kinds of beasts in the 10,000 demon realm, the spirit chi there is concentrated. It's a very suitable place for you to cultivate, but dangers also exist. There are often cases where the beasts go berserk and disciples are brutally killed, Fairy Shixian explained to him. She spoke with a tone that left no way for Hanju to decline it. But the silver lining was that it was a good place for him to cultivate. Fighting beasts was better than contesting with other people. Isn't it just being a zookeeper?
Fine.
I will follow master's arrangements. Hanju cupped his hands. Fairy Shixian nodded and said, pack up and head straight to the pet beast pavilion. Someone will bring you to the 10,000 demon realm. The previous one stationed there is your first senior. Now that he's under the sect master, only you can go. If the mission is successful, I will reward you. In addition, you will receive 10 superior grade spirit stones for every year you guard the 10,000 demon realm. You can stay there as long as you want, as this is a continuous sect mission. Before you go, you can receive the mission first. The source of this content is Light Novel World.
Come.
Before returning to his cave abode, Hanju first inherited the 7 illusionary steps. Before returning to his cave abode, Hanju first inherited the 7 illusionary steps. He had to strengthen himself first to prevent any mishaps. Unparalleled movement technique, top-notch movement technique aptitude. With this connate providence, Hanju completely grasped the 7 illusionary steps in 2 hours. There were a total of 7 levels to this footwork technique. For every level 1 mastered, one could create a shadow clone of himself. With 7 shadow clones, it would be easy to make the enemy confused about which one would be the real person. Using this footwork technique, one could also greatly increase one's speed of escape. After mastering it, Hanju returned to his cave abode to pack his things before heading to the inner sect city. He first went to the mission building to receive the mission before heading to the pet beast pavilion. In the Jade Serene Hall, Fairy Shixian stared emotionlessly at Elder Iron and slowly said, I don't wish to delve into the stories between you and Hanju. From today onwards, your fellow disciples. You must respect him. With my understanding of him, he won't scheme against you. You can rest assured. Elder Iron knelt in the hall and sighed, nodding slowly. In the future, Hanju will be my personal disciple. If you build a good relationship with him, it will only be beneficial to you. As long as it's not a grudge about life and death, you should reconcile. Fairy Shixian's words shocked Elder Iron. Personal disciple. Fairy Shixian thinks so highly of Hanju? When he thought of Hanju's insane speed at cultivating, he could only admit that kid's indeed worthy. Walking out of the teleportation formation, Hanju arrived at the 10,000 demon realm. The sky of the 10,000 demon realm was covered in dark clouds, as if it were about to rain at any moment. Hanju took out his flying sword and shot up into the sky. According to the instructions of the disciples at the Pet Beast Pavilion, he had to find the pavilion of the Jade Serene Peak first. That would be his residence. There were forbidding spells cast on the pavilion, and ordinary beasts wouldn't dare to approach. Of course, he couldn't hide in the pavilion forever. If he encountered a rampage, he had to take action to reduce the losses for the Jade Pure Sect. The Jade Pure Sect had spent a lot of money to buy all the beasts in the 10,000 demon realm, and nurturing them also required a lot of resources. The pavilion wasn't far from the teleportation formation, and Hanju quickly found it. It was 2 stories high, and it wasn't very big. The house was deserted. After familiarizing himself with the mechanisms to trigger the forbidding spells, Hanju began to meditate and cultivate. The long and boring cultivation began again. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel World. A year and a half passed quickly. Hanju was already 50 years old. Name: Hanju. Lifespan: 50/196. Race: mortal. Cultivation: 9th level of the Foundation Establishment Realm. Technique: 6 paths of reincarnation technique can be inherited. Magic: unparalleled finger divine sword, 7 illusionary steps, mystical power, none equipment, none cultivation potential, spiritual physique of the 6 paths. It contains top-notch wind, fire, water, earth, wood, and thunder cultivation potentials. Increases providence to a certain extent. Connate providence is as follows: unparalleled, immortal beauty, top-notch charm. Destined sword fanatic, top-notch sword Dao aptitude, top-notch sword Dao learning ability, unparalleled movement technique, top-notch movement technique aptitude. Descendant of the immortal emperor. After the game begins, you will receive an unparalleled cultivation technique and 1,000 superior grade spirit stones. Check interpersonal relationships. He cultivated his wind cultivation potential to the 6th level of the Foundation Establishment realm. Apart from the Thunder Spirit root, the other cultivation potentials were still at the 5th level of the Foundation Establishment realm. Since Han Ju had nothing to do, he opened his interpersonal relationships to check. Xing Hongxian had broken through to the 9th level of the Qi Refinement realm. Interesting. Elder Iron was still in the 1st level of the Foundation Establishment realm. Han Ju opened the email. Your good friend Mo Zhu was attacked by a fiendish cultivator and was almost seriously injured. Your good friend Mo Zhu was attacked by disciples of the Jade Pure sect. She was in a perilous situation and fell down a cliff. Han Ju was speechless. As expected, there was a trap in that cave abode. Fortunately, he did not go. Follow current novels on Light Novel World. It was very unfortunate for her. Han Ju could only pray for her silently. Roar. Suddenly, a roar came from outside the pavilion. Han Ju frowned and stood up immediately. As he walked out the door, he saw a white cat standing on a branch. This white cat had a slender figure, but there were white tiger patterns on it. Its purple eyes looked even more demonic. Han Ju didn't sense any danger and ignored the little white cat. At this moment, the white cat suddenly pounced on Han Ju. Han Ju instinctively used the 7 illusionary steps to dodge. The white cat slammed into the wall of the pavilion, kicked off with its 4 legs, turned around, and continued to pounce on Han Ju. Han Ju frowned. The forbidding spells weren't triggered? He quickly jumped out into the clearing. The white cat pounced again, its speed several times faster than before. So fast. Han Ju used the 7 illusionary steps and created 7 shadow clones to surround the white cat. The 7 Han Jus raised their hands at the same time to use the unparalleled finger divine sword. The white cat looked around, caught off guard, and was hit by the real sword energy. Blood splattered as it wailed. It quickly jumped away and disappeared into the woods. Han Ju retracted his hand and returned to the pavilion. He let out a long breath and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Fortunately, he had learned the 7 illusionary steps beforehand. Otherwise, with the white cat's speed, he wouldn't have been its match. Where did that white cat come from? It's so fast, but luckily, it doesn't have any other attack methods. Han Ju thought silently. It seemed like he had to be more cautious in the future. After thinking about it, Han Ju continued to cultivate. Inside a palace, the elders of the 18 peaks were gathered here. Visit Light Novel World. Calm for a better experience, Sect Master is not here. We have to investigate the recent rampage in the 10,000 Demon Realm, an elder said. He was the teaching elder of the Heavenly Thunder Peak, old immortal Taoist thunder. It's rather fishy. I keep having the feeling that it's related to the viridescent nether cult. That's right. The fiendish cultivators from the viridescent nether cult appeared in the nearby Li Qianlong's cave abode. I suspect there's a traitor in our higher-ups. Once the sect leader left, they started a series of actions. Could it be that the cult wants to make use of the beasts in the 10,000 demon realm? Very likely. After 200 years of training by the Jade Pure sect, the 10,000 demon realm has become a force that cannot be underestimated. Let's send more disciples into the 10,000 demon realm. The elders were all talking at once. Fairy Shi Xian sat quietly without interrupting. After a long discussion, the peaks finally decided to send 2 more disciples into the 10,000 demon realm. The elders left. Just as Fairy Shixian was about to leave, old immortal Taoist Thunder suddenly called out to her. When only the two of them were left in the hall, old immortal Taoist Thunder asked, "Junior, why didn't you say anything just now?" Fairy Shixian said calmly, "You can decide on these matters." Old immortal Taoist Thunder narrowed his eyes and asked, "Do you know where the sect leader brought those 18 core candidates to?" Fairy Shixian didn't reply. "If there really is a traitor among the elders, then the only person I can trust is you, Junior. We have to work together," old immortal Taoist Thunder said seriously. Fairy Shixian replied, "Of course. After all, we were taught by the same master." Old immortal Taoist Thunder smiled in satisfaction. 10,000 Demon Realm. It had been 2 years since the White Cat left. Hanju's 5 spiritual powers had all reached the 6th level of the Foundation Establishment Realm. Cultivating steadily, he was already halfway to the Golden Core Realm. "My young friend, are you using the 10,000 Demon Realm as your training ground?" A mocking voice sounded. Hanju opened his eyes and saw that an old man had appeared at the door. The old man was wearing a coarse cloth robe. He was shaking a wine gourd, and his nose was red from overdrinking. Hanju frowned and asked, "Who are you?" He actually didn't sense the old man's approach. Updated from Light Novel World. Calm, dangerous. Like you, I'm also a disciple of the Jade Pure Sect, who's here to look after the 10,000 Demon Realm. Like you, I'm also a disciple of the Jade Pure Sect who's here to look after the 10,000 Demon Realm. The red-nosed old man chuckled. He sized up Hanju and clicked his tongue in wonder. The 3rd level of the Foundation Establishment Realm, but looking at the rate of your expiration, I'd say you definitely ain't only at the 3rd level. You're probably at the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment Realm. Am I right? Hanju couldn't help but tense up. His true cultivation had been discovered. This was the first time he had met someone who could tell his cultivation. Could it be that this person's cultivation was the same as Fairy Shixian's? You don't have to be nervous. Did you volunteer to come here, or did your master send you here? Asked the red-nosed old man. Looking at how Hanju cultivated, he didn't seem to have volunteered to come. Hanju replied, "My master, Fairy Shixian, sent me here. I have a backing, don't try tricking me. Li Qingzi has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star." A line of words appeared in front of Hanju. He quickly checked the list of his attributes and checked his interpersonal relationships. Li Qingzi, 8th level of the Nascent Soul Realm, Sect Master of Jade Pure Sect, adores Fairy Shixian. Current favorability, 1 star, the Sect Master of the Jade Pure Sect. Isn't that the biggest boss? Hanju was shocked. This old dude actually has an affection towards my master? The thought of Li Qingzi and Fairy Shixian together made him shudder. Li Qingzi is not worthy. Did your master give you a mission? Li Qingzi asked. Hanju replied, "Even if there is, how can I tell you?" Li Qingzi smiled. "Oh, you can't tell others about the mission?" Hanju remained silent. Li Qingzi stretched lazily and smiled.
"Come with me, then."
"You've gotten into trouble. Since you're Fairy Shixian's disciple, I can help you settle it." Puzzled, Hanju got up and followed. This content is taken from Light Novel World. Calm as the sect master of the Jade Pure Sect, Li Qingzi shouldn't be intending to harm him. The two of them walked into the forest. "Do you know why I'm here?" Li Qingzi placed his hands behind his back and asked with a smile. Hanju shook his head. "Maybe because you're a simp." But of course, he wouldn't say that. He couldn't let his sect master lose face. "The number of beasts around you is increasing. It looks like they are likely to go into a rampage. The key is that these beasts are very well behaved at the moment, as if they are waiting for the moment. To be able to command so many beasts, it must be the doing of a demon king. You have probably provoked the tiger heart white dragon. This little fellow's father is a famous demon king, and it inherited the demon king's bloodline. The reason it summoned so many beasts is probably to take revenge against you." After hearing Li Qingzi's words, Hanju recalled the white cat from 2 years ago. Could that be the white tiger heart? Hanju recounted his experience. You're faster than Tiger Heart White Dragon? Li Qingzi asked in surprise. Can it be that this kid has already become Junior Shixian's personal disciple? Thinking of what Fairy Shixian had said, Li Qingzi couldn't help but nod. Li Qingzi's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability. 1, 5 stars. Hanju raised his eyebrows and said, I learned a movement technique. It's normal for me to be faster. He immediately felt better. It seemed like it wasn't that he was weak, but that the Tiger Heart White Dragon was truly fast. If it was any other disciple, they probably wouldn't have been able to keep up. Following Li Qingzi, Hanju arrived in front of a cliff. He looked down and saw the figures of beasts everywhere in the wilderness below. The beasts all had terrifying looks. The big ones were as big as hills, while the small ones were all kinds of insect-like beasts the size of a pail. This was the first time Hanju saw a scene like this. He couldn't help but pale. He estimated that there were at least 1,000 beasts. If all of them were to charge at the pavilion he was in, there was no way for him to defend it. He would only be able to flee. His gaze landed on a large rock. The white cat from 2 years ago was sleeping soundly on it. Hanju was speechless. I'm too lucky. Bumping into a little demon king straight away. Sir, you said you were going to help me deal with it. Are you going to kill it? Hanju asked. Li Qingzi glared at him and said, This Tiger Heart White Dragon has great potential. Won't the sect find trouble with me if I kill it? Hanju said gloomily. Then, how do we resolve the problems? Updated from Light Novel World. Calm, you can go tame it. Li Qingzi pinched his beard and smiled. Hearing this, Hanju turned around and left immediately. With so many demonic beasts, how am I going to tame it? Little brat, why are you leaving? Li Qingzi quickly pressed on his shoulder and questioned. Why did Junior accept such a disciple? I'll set up a formation and trap them here. 5 years at most. If you can tame the Tiger Heart White Dragon within 5 years, I'll reward you with the Pure Jade Sect's ultimate technique, Li Qingzi said seriously. The sect master of the Jade Pure Sect has given you a mission. You have the following choices. A demon king's hatred? The attention of the viridescent nether cult? Hanju almost exploded. He immediately phrased his response. I think I won't do it, sir. You should find someone else. I'm really afraid. I just want to cultivate in peace. Li Qingzi was stunned. He frowned and said, I can teach you the Pure Jade Sect's supreme cultivation technique, the Pure Jade Technique. Comparable to my 6 paths of reincarnation technique? Hanju still shook his head. Li Qingzi's favorability towards you has decreased. Current favorability. 0. 5 stars, Li Qingzi snorted. Then get lost. Hanju bowed and fled quickly. Li Qingzi sighed. Is the person Junior arranged not him? Back in the pavilion. Hanju chose the second option. You rejected Li Qingzi's mission and obtained a sword technique manual. Congratulations on obtaining the unparalleled sword technique, 3 Pure Shadow Sword. This content is taken from Light Novel World. Calm, an unparalleled sword technique? Hanju rejoiced. Finally, although the unparalleled Finger Divine sword was not bad, its range was limited. The sword chi it shot out was more like bullets. If he was faced with the large-scale invasion of beasts, it would be very difficult to do anything. He didn't inherit it immediately, but waited. An hour later, he began to inherit this sword technique. As he inherited the 3 Pure Shadow Sword technique, Hanju's body began to absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Not long after, a strong eddy encircled the pavilion. The surrounding trees swayed, as if a storm was about to arrive. This strange phenomenon lasted for an hour. The inheritance was completed. Hanju's top-notch aptitude in the sword Dao allowed him to inherit the technique without any difficulties. Inside the room, Hanju suddenly opened his eyes, and a cold light flashed in them. He raised his hand and made a hand seal, mobilizing the spiritual force in his body to execute the 3 Pure Shadow Sword. 3 sword shadows with different colors appeared behind him. The thunder spiritual force sword shadow zapped with flashes. The fire spiritual force sword shadow was like raging flames, burning fiercely. The wind spiritual force sword shadow was blue-green, and the blade was surrounded by strong winds. What a powerful sword technique. Unparalleled. Indeed. Hanju immediately stood up and walked out of the pavilion. The 3 sword shadows floated behind him like his shadow. Using his finger as a sword, he pointed forward. The 3 sword shadows behind him zoomed forward at an extremely fast speed. They were even faster than the tiger heart white dragon. They were like 3 different colored lightning bolts. Boom! Blinding sword flashes bloomed. Dozens of trees within 100 meters radius were chopped into 3 parts by the sword shadows. The chopped tree trunks soared into the sky, and its leaves withered. It was a spectacular scene. As the trees fell back to the ground, dust was flung into the air. So powerful! Hanju was pleasantly surprised. This is what I call unparalleled technique. So strong. He hadn't even used his full strength. If he were to face the army of beasts, he would turn the battlefield into a meat grinder in minutes. Accept the mission and try your best to tame the tiger heart white dragon. You will be rewarded with Li Qingzi's ultimate technique, the Demon King's hatred, and the viridescent nether cult's attention. Reject the mission and continue cultivating. You will be able to obtain a sword technique manual, and Li Qingzi's favorability will decrease. After learning the 3 pure shadow sword technique, Hanju became much more confident. After learning the 3 pure shadow sword technique, Hanju became much more confident. He could now produce 3 sword shadows, each of a different attribute, and he could manipulate all of them with ease. The technique could also be activated continuously. When the sword shadows of the first activation disappeared, he could summon another 3, until he ran out of spirit energy. Hanju's spirit energy far surpassed cultivators of the same realm. After all, he cultivated the technique inherited from the immortal emperor, the 6 paths of reincarnation technique. Apart from cultivating 6 types of spirit energy, each type of spirit energy in the 6 paths of reincarnation technique could be cultivated to a robust state. From today on, I'm no longer a weakling, Hanju thought proudly. He returned to the pavilion in high spirits and prepared to continue cultivating. Cultivation was the key. The higher one's cultivation level was, the stronger the effects of his techniques. When he reached the nascent soul realm, his 3 pure shadow sword technique would have an apocalyptic effect. Hanju was looking forward to it. Several days later, Jade Serene Peak sent over 2 more disciples. One was Chang Yue, and the other was also his senior, Meng He. Meng He was the Jade Serene Peak's 7th disciple. His cultivation level had reached the 9th stage foundation establishment realm. He was pretty strong. Why is the forest outside cut off? What happened? Meng He asked in confusion. Hanju replied, previously, beasts tried to besiege me. Fortunately, an elder helped. Chang Yue sized him up and asked, Junior, are you all right? As she spoke, she reached out to touch him. Hanju hurriedly took a step back. Furious, Chang Yue scolded him. Are you serious? Hanju cleared his throat and said, Master has warned that disciples of Jade Serene Peak are not allowed. Humph, you wish. I'm just concerned about you. Meng He shook his head and laughed. He didn't find it strange. Although Hanju kept a low profile, rumors about his good looks had already spread far and wide. Many female cultivators in the inner sect were talking about a breathtakingly handsome disciple from the Jade Serene Peak, but they didn't know his name. After hearing the rumors, Meng He immediately reckoned that they were referring to Hanju. Follow new episodes on the Light Novel World. Com platform. Not to mention Jade Serene Peak. Even in the entire inner sect, no male disciple was more handsome than Hanju. Chang Yue was quite pretty, but she was still far from the most beautiful female cultivator. Junior Hanju doesn't need to worry about finding a companion. Master was afraid that you would be in danger, so she sent us to help you. It's said that the viridescent nether cult might have already infiltrated the 10,000 demon realm. We have to be careful, Meng He reminded. Viridescent nether cult? Han Ju frowned. No wonder that if he had subdued the tiger heart white dragon, he would attract the attention of the cult. So, they have already infiltrated the 10,000 demon realm? Perhaps that's why Li Qingzi came here. How dangerous. Han Ju suddenly wanted to leave the 10,000 demon realm. Junior Chong, rest first. I'll go out and take a look. After saying this, Meng He walked out of the pavilion. Han Ju walked to the side and continued to meditate, not giving Chong Yuer a chance to strike up a conversation. Chong Yuer curled her lips and also began to cultivate. Ever since she found out that Han Ju was already at the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment realm, she had spent most of her time cultivating in seclusion. She was fired up. But regarding Han Ju's cultivation, Fairy Shixian had told her not to spread it out, so the other disciples of the Jade Serene Peak didn't know of his cultivation level. 2 days later, Meng He finally returned. He looked like he had run into trouble. Han Ju and Chong Yuer hurriedly stood up to attend to him. Meng He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said with lingering fear, I encountered a very strong beast equivalent to a golden core cultivator. I nearly died. Han Ju asked, Are there many beasts nearby? There's a group of beasts several kilometers away, but I don't know who trapped them with an array formation. They aren't a threat. The powerful beast I encountered was quite far away, so it won't pose a threat to us, replied Meng He. Then, hurry up and recuperate.
Yes.
Meng He meditated and circulated his spiritual energy to heal his injuries. Not long after, he spat out another mouthful of blood. The blood was black. Extremely terrifying. Was he poisoned? The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel World. Calm Lucky. I don't wander around. Indeed, one shouldn't be reckless. Han Ju pondered as he cultivated. Chong Yuer was also very uneasy. It had only been 2 days, but 7th Senior was already injured. The 10,000 demon realm was a truly savage place. Why did Junior Han remain unscathed for so many years? Chong Yuer looked at Han Ju suspiciously. Could he be more powerful than 7th Senior? After Meng He was injured, he didn't dare to wander around anymore. Han Ju was busy cultivating and didn't go out. Chong Yuer naturally didn't dare to go out either. A year quickly passed. That day, Han Ju was cultivating. Meng He suddenly opened his mouth and said, The presence of beasts is getting stronger in the vicinity, and they're moving rapidly. Their target should be us. Han Ju and Chong Yuer opened their eyes upon hearing that. Han Ju said, Then, why aren't we running? Chong Yuer frowned. But this place is under the jurisdiction of the Jade Serene Peak. If we leave, aren't we leaving our post without approval? Then, stay and wait for your death. I'll tell Master about your heroic deeds. Han Ju stood up. Chong Yuer got anxious and stood up as well. Junior Han is right. The 18 peaks each have an area to manage. We definitely won't be the only ones being attacked by the wave of beasts. Other people will definitely run as well, said Meng He. Ever since his defeat by the powerful Best, he had lost his previous confidence. As long as we survive, there's hope. Let's go. After Han Ju said that, he rushed out of the pavilion. Chong Yuer and Meng He followed closely behind. The 3 of them flew on their swords. Once they were high in the air, they lowered their heads to take a look. Indeed, with the pavilion as the center, countless beasts were running towards them from all directions. Cold sweat broke out on Han Ju's forehead. So many! The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel World. Comet seemed like he was still not vigilant enough. He still needed to train his divine sense. If not for Meng He's reminder, they would definitely be in huge trouble now. Swish! An air-piercing sound came from ahead. The 3 of them turned their heads and saw a black eagle with a wingspan of 30 feet speeding over. Its feathers were like metal arrows. Be careful. Meng He immediately took out a talisman and quickly chanted a spell. 3 balls of flames shot out from the talisman at the Black Eagle. The Black Eagle dodged rapidly and circled in the air before continuing to pounce on the 3 of them. At the same time, other flying beasts also attacked. Han Ju took a glance. There was a total of 7 of them, all zooming at a breakneck speed. Chang Yuer was so frightened that her face turned pale, and her hand holding her equipment trembled. Also frightened, Meng He shouted, "Let's split up and escape." Han Ju cursed silently. "So, you want to escape alone?" On the surface, Han Ju and Chang Yuer's cultivation levels were inferior to Meng He's. They were, in fact, his burden. Meng He turned around and escaped. He cast a spell and transformed into a gust of wind, escaping extremely quickly. Chang Yuer didn't know what to do. This was the first time she had encountered such a dangerous situation. Seeing the 7 demon beasts approaching like rockets, Han Ju immediately used the 3 pure shadow sword technique. The sword shadows immediately materialized and zapped out. Chang Yuer only saw a flash of light in front of her, and the 7 flying beasts were cut into several pieces, dying on the spot. She widened her eyes and looked at Han Ju in disbelief. Han Ju's long hair fluttered in the wind. His eyes were cold and sharp, emitting an awe-inspiring aura. Chang Yuer's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability: 4 stars. Han Ju's expression changed.
Crap.
He turned around and saw that Chang Yuer was looking at him with glowing eyes. Meng He had already fled without a trace. That brat's really quick. Chang Yuer excitedly said, "Junior Han, so you're actually this powerful." Han Ju said seriously, "Senior Chang, don't tell anyone what you saw. I still want to keep a low profile and cultivate quietly. If I'm exposed, I might become a core candidate. If that happens, you won't be seeing me anymore." Chang Yuer immediately nodded. Han Ju swooped down, and Chang Yue hurriedly followed. Han Ju swooped down, and Chang Yue hurriedly followed. "Junior, what are you trying to do?" Han Ju replied, "Aren't there many valuable materials on the beasts? I need to collect them." Only now did Han Ju finally realize how powerful he was. The beasts weren't as strong as he had imagined. The moment this thought appeared, Han Ju immediately relaxed and was full of confidence. "Oh, that's right. Junior, let me help you. I've learned how to dissect beasts. It's the only way I can thank you," Chang Yue said enthusiastically. Han Ju thought for a while and nodded. Having a helping hand could boost efficiency. After about 5 minutes, the 2 of them cleaned up the carcasses and left quickly. As they traveled, Chang Yue was very excited. However, when they started talking about Meng He, she gritted her teeth. 7th senior is going overboard.
No.
He doesn't deserve to be our 7th senior. When I go back, I must complain to Master. I hope he gets eaten up by beasts. Junior, where are we going next? Han Ju was also very hesitant. It was really too dangerous. Forget it. Let's go back. At most, we'll kneel before Master and apologize, Han Ju said seriously. Although ordinary beasts couldn't hurt him, what if a demon king and members of the cult appeared? Chang Yue asked hesitantly, "Is this really okay? If you think it's bad, then stay."
No.
"I'll go back with you." The 2 of them rushed towards the teleportation formation. For more, visit Light Novel World. Calm before long, they found it. There were more than 10 cultivators gathered before the teleportation formation. Meng He was among them. He was stunned upon seeing them. He hurriedly put on a surprised smile and said, "Junior brother, junior sister, you're actually still alive. That's great." Chang Yue gritted her teeth in anger. She wanted to curse at Meng He. Han Ju raised his hand, signaling her not to. He suddenly caught sight of Mo Fuzhou. "Brother Han, why are you here?" Mo Fuzhou asked with a smile. He noticed Chang Yuer's expression and couldn't help but glance at Meng He. Meng He sensed Emo Fuzhou's gaze and felt extremely awkward. He forced a smile. Master arranged for me to come. By the way, your sister, Emo Zhu, is in trouble. She went to Li Qianlong's cave abode to search for treasures. I tried to persuade her against it, but she still went, Han Zhu said as he walked to the teleportation formation. Chang Yue followed closely behind. The two of them took out spirit stones and activated the formation to leave. Emo Fuzhou frowned, his expression changing. Someone beside him asked, "Who is this person? A disciple of Jade Serene Peak? Why haven't I seen him before?" Meng He replied, "Yes, he's my fellow disciple at Jade Serene Peak. He's called Han Zhu. He's highly regarded by Master. Previously, Master wanted him to join the sect leader's core candidates, but he rejected her." Upon hearing that, everyone was shocked. Emo Fuzhou's eyes flickered. He's indeed worthy. After returning to the inner sect, Han Zhu and Chang Yue went to sell the materials they obtained from the beasts. There was a dedicated market in the inner sect for transacting materials from beasts. What surprised Han Zhu was that these materials were sold for 397 superior-grade spirit stones. Is killing beasts so profitable? Han Zhu said excitedly. He suddenly wanted to turn back and continue killing the beasts. Chang Yue hurriedly stopped him and said in a low voice, "Junior, don't think about it. The 10,000 Demon Realm is a small world specially designed by the sect to nurture beasts. The beasts inside are all valuable. Under normal circumstances, disciples are not allowed to kill them. This time, the situation is special. We might not be held responsible, but it will definitely be very troublesome next time." Han Zhu realized he had been too imaginative. He should just stay in seclusion and cultivate as usual. The source of this content is Light Novel World. The two of them returned to the Jade Serene Peak and first visited Fairy Shixian. After the door opened, the two of them entered the hall to kneel before her. "Why did you return?" Fairy Shixian asked with a frown. Han Zhu replied, "I discovered that the 10,000 Demon Realm is too dangerous. There are demon kings and the cult. We were attacked by beasts and I even offended the son of a demon king. I really can't stay there anymore. Master, please punish me. I'm willing to face the wall and repent for 100 years. Fairy Shixian was speechless. Chang Yue looked at him with a strange expression. 100 years? That's really extreme. What if you are not allowed to cultivate within the 100 years? Fairy Shixian asked. Han Zhu's face froze. Chang Yue promptly said, "Master, when we were attacked by the beasts, 7th Senior Meng He abandoned us and ran away." The mention of this infuriated her. However, Fairy Shixian didn't get angry. She remained calm and said, "Don't you think it's just because you are too weak? You can't force your senior to stay behind and die with you." Chang Yue wanted to say something but hesitated, unable to say anything. It was the cruel truth. Meng He didn't hurt them. He just wanted to protect himself. Fairy Shixian said, You should leave first." Chang Yue glanced at Han Zhu, then bowed and left. When Han Zhu and Fairy Shixian were the only ones left in the hall, a murderous aura spread out. Han Zhu was shocked. What's Master trying to do? He didn't dare to raise his head and looked very well behaved. This content is taken from Light Novel World. Han Zhu, what are you cultivating for? Fairy Shixian asked. Her voice was cold and emotionless. For immortality. If you keep cultivating in seclusion, you won't be able to live forever. What matters most is competing for opportunities. I understand, but I want to increase my cultivation level first. I'll try my luck when I'm strong enough. Master, you don't understand. I have unparalleled cultivation potential and 4 top-notch Khanate provinces. Han Zhu thought silently. Only people with insufficient talent needed to compete for opportunities. Fairy Shixian continued, I originally arranged an opportunity for you. If you succeed in the 10,000 Demon Realm this time, you will definitely become a core disciple in the future. The treatment you will receive will also be far better than now. Unfortunately, you have given up.
Thank you, Master.
I can only blame myself for not having the fortune. The cultivation technique you are using is unfathomable, and I have nothing much to teach you. How about this? Do you want to have a cave abode on par with the Thunder Spiritual Pool? It even has other types of spirit chi apart from Thunder Spirit Chi. Hearing this, Hanju suddenly raised his head and asked in surprise, "Where?" Fairy Shixian said with an expressionless face, "Recently, the Jade Pure Sect discovered 3 more Khanate cave abodes. These cave abodes are not created by cultivators, but the creation of heaven and earth. They're near the sect. If you want to obtain a Khanate cave abode, you must participate in the inner sect assessment that's held once every 10 years. Anyone below the core disciple level can participate. If you can obtain one of the top 3 spots, you'll be able to obtain a Khanate cave abode. The winner gets to choose first." Hanju frowned. Fairy Shixian glared at him and said unhappily, "Don't tell me you're even afraid of fighting? It's not like anyone will harm your life." Hanju hesitated for a moment before asking, "Master, under normal circumstances, do Golden Core disciples participate? Do you think cultivators of the Golden Core realm are as common as cabbages? Any disciple who reaches the Golden Core realm will either become a core disciple, an elder, or a deacon. In other words, all the participants are Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators." "That's right. Then, it's settled." "Yeah. Thank you for your advice, Master. I will do my best to win face for Jade Serene Peak." Fairy Shixian finally smiled and looked at him playfully. "Lil brat. I don't believe you won't be tempted." Fairy Shixian's favorability of you has increased. Current favorability: 2, 5 stars. Hanju didn't return to his cave abode. Instead, he headed to the inner sect's spiritual pools to cultivate. Hanju didn't return to his cave abode. Instead, he headed to the inner sect's spiritual pools to cultivate. Since he was participating in the inner sect assessments, he would have to fight for the top 3 places. With a Khanate cave abode, he would no longer have to worry about the lack of spirit chi. He would be able to stay in his cave abode forever. Before that, he had to increase his cultivation as much as possible. He had asked Fairy Shixian about it. There were still 8 years until the next inner sect assessment. Hanju went to the fire spiritual pool first and paid for a year. There were quite a few disciples in the fire spiritual pool, about 20 to 30 of them. Hanju found a corner and began to meditate and cultivate. His appearance attracted the attention of some female disciples. "That person is so handsome. Could it be that mysterious, handsome disciple from Jade Serene Peak? Maybe. I've never seen anyone so good-looking before. I wish I knew him." Hanju could hear their discussion, but he pretended not to. "Without a woman in my heart, I can cultivate insanely fast." A year later, Hanju's fire cultivation potential had reached the 8th level of the Foundation Establishment realm. Perhaps because his thunder cultivation potential had already reached the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment realm, he was able to cultivate his other spirit powers faster than before. Hanju hurried to the water spiritual pool next. Just like that, another 4 years passed. All his remaining cultivation potentials had reached the 8th level of the Foundation Establishment realm. There were 3 years left. He continued to cultivate. He would strive to reach the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment realm before the inner sect assessment. Wind spiritual pool. The moment Hanju entered, he saw a group of disciples gathered. "Zhou Fan, didn't you say that you would surpass us in the next inner sect assessment? Why are you still at the 1st level of the Foundation Establishment realm?" Visit Light Novel World. Com for the best novel reading experience. Haraha. How can he surpass us with his cultivation potential? Today, if you're willing to kneel before us, we won't make things difficult for you. Senior, this brat has been relying on Junior Lu before. Now that Junior Lu is getting ready to become the companion of the first disciple from Sword Peak, she will definitely sever ties with him in the future. If we beat him up now, maybe Junior Lu will be more than happy. Hanju shook his head at their discussion and then found a corner to cultivate. Such conflicts weren't rare in the Jade Pure sect. Although the Jade Pure sect was a righteous sect where there were people, there would always be conflicts. Hanju had seen that more than once before. You bunch of trash dare to take on me here? Aren't you afraid of the punishment from the law enforcement hall? Recently, the cult is getting restless, and you guys are still stirring up trouble. I have reason to suspect that you're traitors from the cult, so I'll report you to the elders. A cold snort followed, sounding very stubborn. Hanju opened his eyes and looked over. The person who spoke was the person surrounded, Zhou Fan. Detected connate providence, checking its origin. A line of words suddenly appeared in front of Hanju, stunning him. Connate providence? He immediately chose to check. Zhou Fan, the reincarnation of a Mahayana cultivator, was born in a town in the mortal world. Together with his childhood sweetheart, the Jade Pure sect detected his spirit root. There's a numinous treasure hidden in the depths of his soul. The numinous treasure is severely injured because it protected him. Now, in order to repair itself, the numinous treasure unconsciously absorbs spirit chi while Zhou Fan cultivates, causing his cultivation speed to be extremely slow. Currently, the numinous treasure is about to be successfully repaired. Hanju's expression turned strange. That's an impressive background. He could be a protagonist in a novel. He narrowed his eyes and looked over. Surrounded, Zhou Fan's expression was calm. Even though he was being pushed around, he didn't seem angry at all. Although he wasn't handsome, he gave off a determined and mature aura. Should I help this protagonist? Of course not. Hanju closed his eyes. No matter how impressive Zhou Fan's background was, it had nothing to do with him. On the contrary, with such a bearer of connate providence around him, he wanted to cultivate even harder. Hanju's goal was immortality and invincibility. When he became invincible, he could do whatever he wanted. At the moment, he should stay clear from trouble. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel World. The group of disciples spat at Zhou Fan for a while, but in the end, they were frightened off by him and didn't dare to do much. They had already spent a lot of money to be here. If they were to delay any longer, they would be at a disadvantage. The wind spiritual pool fell back into silence. A year later, Hanju's wind cultivation potential had reached the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment Realm. He stood up and left. When he arrived at the wind spiritual pool pavilion, he coincidentally met Zhou Fan again. He was talking to a beautiful girl in green. Hanju noticed that Zhou Fan's hands in his sleeves were tightly clenched into fists, obviously restraining his emotions. The girl in green was calmer in comparison, and she quickly turned and left. Zhou Fan stood where he was with trembling shoulders. Hanju could roughly guess what happened. He walked over and brushed past him. Zhou Fan was still angry. When he saw Hanju, he frowned. "Stop right there," Zhou Fan shouted. As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding disciples stopped moving. Hanju didn't stop. He quickly walked out of the pavilion and prepared to head to the other spiritual pools. Zhou Fan suddenly blocked his way. Hanju raised his eyebrows and asked, "What's the matter, brother? Are you Hanju?"
Yeah.
"You know me? I'm Zhou Fan of the Heavenly Thunder Peak. Senior Mo often mentions you. He said that you must be the future mighty cultivator of the Jade Pure sect." Hanju sweated. He didn't expect Mo Fuzhou to boast about him everywhere. He asked politely, "What's the matter?" Zhou Fan looked conflicted. He took a deep breath and said, "I've heard that you're very well liked by the girls. When Junior Mo Zhu mentions you, her eyes literally glitter. I want to ask, how should I chase a girl?" Hanju was confused. What the hell? Follow new episodes on the Light Novel World. Platform. I thought you were going to fight me. Hanju said seriously, "How can cultivators like us be trapped by love? What are girls? If you can obtain the Great Tao, the world will be under your command. By then, you can naturally obtain whatever you want. When have you ever seen me hanging out with girls? With these words, Hanju walked past Zhou Fan and left quickly. Idiot, can your looks compare to mine? Hanju couldn't help but ridicule in his head. Zhou Fan's pupils shrank as he looked at Hanju's silhouette in shock. What a quick movement technique. This person is truly formidable. Zhou Fan thought to himself and started to ponder over Hanju's words. Mo Fuzhou once said that Hanju was definitely the most dedicated towards cultivation he had ever seen. He hesitated for a moment and continued to follow him. Mo Fuzhou has a good impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star. When Hanju saw this line of words, he found it ridiculous. He could feel that Zhou Fan was following him, but he didn't care. In the following year, Hanju stayed in the fire spiritual pool and raised his fire cultivation potential to the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment realm. Zhou Fan had been gone for 2 months. He had looked very reluctant to leave, probably out of spirit stones, wealth, companion, magic, and land. This fellow has neither wealth nor companions. How tragic. Hanju headed to the wood spiritual pool and used 1 year to cultivate his wood cultivation potential to the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment realm. At this point, only water and earth remained at the 8th level of the Foundation Establishment realm. Hanju was very satisfied with his cultivation progress. The inner disciple assessment was about to begin. Hanju returned to his cave abode and waited. Less than half a month after his return, the bell of the Jade Serene Peak sounded again. All the disciples gathered in front of the Jade Serene Hall. Elder Iron had also arrived. Elder Iron's cultivation was still stuck at the 1st level of the Foundation Establishment realm. His cultivation potential is terrible. Visit Light Novel World. Calm for the best novel reading experience. Hanju couldn't help but pity him. When all the disciples were kneeling at the entrance of the hall, Lu Sanqin suddenly sent him a voice transmission. Junior Han, do you know a woman named Xing Hongxian? Xing Hongxian? Xing Hongxian? Hanju's eyelids twitched. How did that witch know Lu Sanqin? Could Xing Hongxian have infiltrated the 10,000 demon realm with a cult? It had been many years. He had no idea what the situation in the 10,000 demon realm was. Hanju immediately replied using telepathy. No. Why, senior? Telepathy was very simple. A Foundation Establishment realm cultivator only needed to grasp some techniques, and they would learn it very quickly. Under our sect master's lead, I hid in the 10,000 demon realm for the past few years. We encountered the cult attempting to capture the Tiger Heart White Dragon. There was a huge battle, but with the sect master with us, we claimed victory, without any casualties. Later, the sect leader told us that it was only so easy because he had received information from a converted spy in the cult. That's why he pretended to leave the sect, but hid in the 10,000 demon realm. The converted spy is Xing Hongxian. When she was young, the cult forced her to take some poison, which they used to threaten her to become a spy in the sect. However, she had always been unwilling and hated it. So, she even tried to steal a recipe from an outer sect alchemist to find an antidote. But that was a naive move. How can pills from an outer sect alchemist work against poison concocted by the cult? After that, she decided to leave the Viridescent Nether cult. But they tried to hunt her down. The sect master happened to be investigating spies from the Viridescent Nether cult and saved her. Because she never harmed the Jade Pure sect, and she contributed in this latest operation to defeat the cult, the sect master allowed her to join the inner sect as a disciple. Hanju was flabbergasted by the story. Lucky that he could conceal his emotions. Xing Hongxian is currently cultivating with us at the main peak. Her master is Daoist Jingxiu. Daoist Jingxiu is sect master's junior. She's in charge of the main peak and personally guides the core candidates. Previously, when we met Xing Hongxian, she was asking around about a disciple named Hanju and told us about their story. Interestingly, the outer sect alchemist previously mentioned has become a disciple of our peak. Even more surprising is that the alchemist had a servant named Hanju. And we also have a Hanju here. Junior Han, what a coincidence. Lu Sanqin looked at him teasingly. Hanju felt awkward and didn't know how to reply. That woman actually let out everything. But it's fine. Right now, he was already an inner sect disciple at the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment realm. Although those were dark days of his life, they didn't affect him much anymore. With no way out, Hanju could only admit, "Alright, I'm the Hanju she knows. I had no choice then." Haha, I understand. It's just that I didn't expect that you would have such cultivation potential. Lu Sanqin joked, and Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. Hanju couldn't help but glance at Elder Iron. They had been using telepathy, so no one could hear their conversation. The source of this content is Light Novel World. Calm Elder Iron had his head lowered, and Hanju couldn't make out his face. Hanju opened his attributes panel and checked his interpersonal relationships. Xing Hongxian, 9th level of the Qi Refinement Realm, can become a companion. Current favorability, 4, 5 stars. That woman is close to the Foundation Establishment Realm. Favorability of 4, 5 stars. She was the one with the highest favorability towards him. Since you like me so much, I hope you will suffer less in the future. Hanju thought silently. Honestly speaking, he couldn't understand why Xing Hongxian liked him so much. Just because I'm good-looking? Unparalleled looks? Well, sometimes looks are the only thing that matters. But why did Xing Hongxian have so much information about the Viridescent Nether cult? Does she have some other secret identity? At this moment, the doors to the Jade Serene Hall opened, and all the disciples stood up to enter. After sitting down, they all looked towards Fairy Shixian. Fairy Shixian asked, "The inner sect assessment is about to begin. Every peak must send at least 10 disciples. Who is willing to participate this time?" 6 disciples immediately raised their hands, including Chang Yuer. Hanju found it strange that Fairy Shixian didn't mention anything about the Khanate Cave abode. If it was mentioned, they would probably be fighting to participate. Is it some special reward from Fairy Shixian? As he thought, Hanju raised his hand silently. The disciples were surprised to see that. Wow, Junior Han is actually participating. Follow new episodes on the Light Novel World. Com platform. Ha ha ha, I thought he was going to continue his seclusion. That should be the case. Continuing with seclusion will affect his progress. Then, I want to participate too. Several disciples raised their hands, causing the participants to exceed 10. Hanju smiled. He didn't expect to be so influential. Although he didn't interact much with the other disciples, he frequented the various spiritual pools to cultivate. So, many people knew that there was an extremely handsome young disciple from Jade Serene Peak. When the disciples heard about the rumors going around, they guessed that it was Hanju. Over time, even though Hanju kept a low profile, there were already rumors about him in the inner sect. He became famous because of his good looks. When Elder Iron saw how popular Hanju was, his expression became even more complex. He was still a nobody in the Jade Serene Peak. After this matter was settled, Fairy Shixian let the disciples leave, leaving Hanju alone. The disciples looked at Hanju enviously. It was obvious that Master thought highly of him. He was given special treatment. The doors closed. Hanju looked up at Fairy Shixian. He had to admit that Master was really beautiful. Hanju had been in the inner sect for decades, but he had never seen a female cultivator more beautiful than Fairy Shixian. However, Fairy Shixian's aura was so powerful that no one dared to profane her. Hanju only exclaimed and didn't have any other thoughts. The disciples are not as good-looking as their master. Seems like the good looks are not being inherited here. You made progress again. I have underestimated you. Even with 3 attributes, you're still cultivating at an outstanding pace. You're probably the fastest in the Jade Pure sect. Fairy Shixian narrowed her eyes as she spoke, as if she wanted to see through him. She was really shocked. Follow new episodes on the light novel world. Com platform. In just 8 short years, Hanju's other cultivation potentials had both reached the 8th level of the Foundation establishment realm. What kind of talent was this? Most importantly, she had never taught him. She was very curious where he had obtained such cultivation technique. I really can't hide anything from you, Master, Hanju replied. His flattery was obvious, but it had little effect. Fairy Xixian said, your cultivation techniques and sword techniques are all very good, but they aren't the techniques of the Jade Pure sect. You must have learned it from someone else. I know that you have been diligently cultivating and have no intention of harming the sect. Some people testify that you were born in the outer sect, which means that you ran into a huge opportunity when you were young. But everyone is destined to run into opportunities of all sorts. So I won't ask further. For this inner sect assessment, you can demonstrate your strength without any worries. You don't have to be afraid of attracting trouble. I'm still very well respected in the sect. Hanju quickly thanked her. He was actually a little worried previously. Now he wasn't afraid anymore. He would use the 3 Pure Shadow sword technique blatantly. Based on the relationship between Fairy Xixian and Sect Master probably thought the same of him. Or perhaps, these were Li Qingzi's ideas in the first place. The greater Hanju's potential, the happier the Jade Pure sect was. To avoid unnecessary trouble, from today onwards, you're my personal disciple. I will report this to the sect. Fairy Xixian spoke again. Personal disciple. Hanju looked up and was surprised. Although Fairy Xixian had dozens of disciples under her, most of them were under the sect. The number of personal disciples could be counted on a single hand. Your status in the Jade Pure sect has risen. You have become the personal disciple of a coaching elder. You will obtain a magic manual. Congratulations on obtaining 9 Dragons Devil Expelling Seal. A line of words appeared in front of Hanju. He was pleasantly surprised and quickly thanked Fairy Xixian. Fairy Xixian took out a token and threw it to him. You may leave. Hanju caught it and took a look. It was a jade token with the words Xixian engraved on it. Follow current novels on Light Novel World. He put away the jade token, bowed, and left. Hanju began inheriting 9 Dragons Devil Expelling Seal once he had returned to his cave abode. Hanju began inheriting 9 Dragons Devil Expelling Seal once he had returned to his cave abode. It was the 3rd magic he had learned so far. But the first 2 were sword techniques. This was different. As the memory of the technique flowed into him, he quickly processed the information. 9 Dragons Devil Expelling Seal was similar to a palm technique. But it was unique in the sense that it formed a seal that could expel devils. And activating this magic with spirit energy of different attributes would have different effects. Although Hanju didn't possess a top-notch potential in sealing techniques, his unparalleled cultivation potential made his learning smooth. 7 days later, Hanju had finally inherited the magic. It was very close to the inner sect assessment. The coaching elder of each peak had submitted the list of participants. Chang Yue visited him to tell him the rules of the assessment. Each peak would set up an arena, and disciples would go from peak to compete. When the top 10 emerged, they would compete in the inner sect city for everyone in the sect to spectate. Hanju liked it. This way, he would only need to fight about 4 times. Even if he attracted attention, it wouldn't last. Junior, the personal disciples from each peak, are having a banquet. Do you want to go? Chang Yue asked. Interestingly, Chang Yue was also Fairy Xixian's personal disciple. Hanju suspected they were relatives. He felt that Chang Yue's potential was only mediocre. No, you can go if you want to. Hanju shook his head. Conflict would easily break out in a banquet with disciples from different peaks. Especially near the inner sect assessment, all of them would want their own peak to look good.
Fine.
Chang Yue shook her head and left. Hanju continued practicing the 9 Dragons Devil Expelling Seal. Although he had already learned it, he wanted to gain complete mastery as he did with his sword techniques. After all, the remaining time wasn't enough to cultivate further. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel World. Calm days pass like that. And the inner sect assessment finally began. The 13 disciples taking part in the assessment stood before the Jade Serene Hall. A wooden notice hanging on the hall gate displayed the venues and timings for each disciple. Everyone had to compete on the first day. Hanju's first match was at Tianju Peak. Tianju Peak was among the top 3 in the sect. They were strong. The timing was noon on the second day. After taking note of it, Hanju quickly returned to his cave abode. But he saw someone unexpected at the entrance. Xing Hongxian. It had been decades. She looked even more elegant in the Jade Pure Sect Taoist robes. Husband. Xing Hongxian called out in surprise and scurried over. Speechless, Hanju moved back as he complained, "Miss, I'm not, so don't call me that." Xing Hongxian covered her mouth and laughed. "Didn't we agree on this back in the outer sect?" Helpless, Hanju said frankly, "I was just putting on a show. If I rejected you, you would have killed me. But I took it seriously. When I met the sect master, I was worried that you would have already exposed me. However, you didn't. You gave me the opportunity to confess. Only then did I have the opportunity to rejoin the Jade Pure Sect and obtain my current status." Xing Hongxian smiled. She took out a jade bottle from her sleeve and said, "This is a Jade Pure Pill. It's suitable for Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators to increase their cultivation. I haven't reached the Foundation Establishment Realm yet, so you can use it first. I'm currently cultivating with Taoist Jingxiu and will receive this pill regularly." Hanju was stunned. Xing Hongxian stuffed the bottle into his hand and said, "Work hard during the inner sect assessment. I didn't expect my husband to be a genius. My aptitude is average, but I will try my best to help you in the future. If my husband reaches the nascent soul realm, he won't mistreat me, right?" Her smile was very sweet and pure, without the slightest hint of a fiendish cultivator. Hanju didn't know if he should reject. Xing Hongxian suddenly turned around and left. She performed flying sword technique and disappeared into the clouds. She didn't give him a chance to reject. Updated from Light Novel World. Calm when Hanju returned to his cave abode, he opened the bottle and found 7 jade pure pills inside. Swallowed one, he was pleasantly surprised to find a huge amount of spirit qi entering his body. He hurriedly circulated his spirit power to refine it. An hour later, he had completed refining all the spirit qi into water spirit energy. It was as good as half a month of cultivation. With his aptitude, half a month of cultivation was equivalent to several years of cultivation for others. This pill is so powerful. Is this the treatment of a core candidate? Hanju was secretly shocked. He had underestimated Xing Hongxian's favorability towards him. At the same time, he was quite puzzled. So, she's able to receive such treatment only by providing information about viridescent nether cult's operations in the 10,000 demon realm? Xing Hongxian was only a qi refinement cultivator active in the outer sect previously. How did she find out the secrets of the viridescent nether cult? It seemed that her identity wasn't as simple as he had imagined. Hanju didn't think too much and continued to take the jade pure pills. After 3 pills, his water cultivation potential had successfully reached the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment Realm. He converted all the remaining jade pure pills into earth spirit energy and successfully reached the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment Realm for it too. At this point, all 6 types of cultivation potentials had reached the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment Realm. He scanned outside with his divine sense and saw it was already late at night. What a powerful jade pure pill. No wonder alchemists have such a high status. Hanju thought silently and suddenly had an idea. At Main Peak, in a dark hall, Xing Hongxian sat in front of an elderly female Taoist. She was Taoist Jingxiu. "Don't you regret giving the jade pure pills to that boy from the Jade Serene Peak?" Taoist Jingxiu asked. This content is taken from Light Novel World. Calm Xing Hongxian said in a soft voice, I don't regret it. I have fallen into the trap of love. Just because he has good looks? Isn't that enough? His looks are indeed outstanding. In all my life, I have never seen a man who is better looking than him. I feel that it isn't worth it for you to help him just because of his looks. His aptitude is also very outstanding. When I first saw him, he hadn't started cultivating yet. But I heard from the sect master that he's already at the 9th level of the Foundation establishment realm. Taoist Jingxiu frowned and fell into deep thought. Such talent was indeed. Puzzled, she asked, why haven't I heard of him all these years? Xing Hongxian answered. Sect master said he kept a low profile. Ever since he entered the inner sect, he has been busy cultivating in seclusion. Previously, the sect master wanted to give him an opportunity, but he rejected it because he was afraid of death. Taoist Jingxiu teased, if he was afraid of death, how could he have such an experience? It seems like he's very determined and confident in himself. Xing Hongxian nodded. Thinking of Hanju's extremely handsome face, her face turned slightly red. It seems I have to pay more attention to him, Taoist Jingxiu said with a half-smile. At noon, Hanju set off for Tianju Peak. He stood on the flying sword with a conflicted expression. What should I do today? I can't seem too strong. With a 9th level foundation establishment cultivation for all 6 attributes and unparalleled sword techniques, Hanju really didn't think anyone could compete with him. He had heard that the highest cultivation level of this assessment's candidates was only at the 9th level of the foundation establishment realm. Disciples with higher cultivation levels had already finished their apprenticeship or become personal disciples, elite disciples, or core disciples. They didn't need the reward from the assessment. With the same cultivation, Hanju felt that he couldn't lose. Detected that the Jade Pure Sect Inner Sect assessment is about to begin. You have the following choices. Win in a high-profile manner, shock the sect, and receive 1,000 superior grade spirit stones. Keep a low profile, and get into the top 3. Try your best to reduce the impact. You can obtain a numinous treasure. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.